The guy got scared and said that he would find out. And no, he already knows the way. And besides participating in the Ascension Festival for the respected Flameblade, one of the 5 strongest sword masters, there is another way to get into the Academy of Heavenly Warriors. And he can become a teacher, not a student. With the number of students constantly growing, the Academy of Heavenly Warriors is constantly recruiting the best masters to become teachers. And he is the mother of Pure Breeze. As the head of the House of Pure Breeze, he guarantees that such an expert as Flameblade will not only be hired, but also provided with a high salary, comfortable housing, and much more. He asked in surprise, right? Sue answered in surprise that it even sounds interesting. The guy said that he suggests that they return to the inn and rest, and he will contact the Academy of Heavenly Warriors. And he assures that the institution will be so happy that they will immediately come running to him. Sue asked in surprise, really? And since he insists, he will leave this matter in his care. Sue asked, how can he get there? Will he have to take an exam? The guy answered that this is where the second snag lies. And to participate, you need to submit documents in advance and pass the check. But the reception ended 15 days ago. They will have to wait for the next Ascension Festival, which will be in a year. Sue asked, is the application deadline over? So he says he has to wait a whole year? And that's the answer of the man who received half a gold coin from him. Sue pulled out his brushes and asked, what should he do? Does the guy understand that he hates waiting? Very much. Sue used his powers and threw the brushes at the guy. He pinned him straight to the wall and left him no choice. The guy then said that he remembered, and there is only one way to participate in this year's Ascension Festival, and let them go to the Valiant Tiger Claw. They need to go there, and they will receive a special token of the Ascended Dragon, which will allow them to pass the selection for the Academy of Heavenly Warriors. There are a great number of martial arts masters, but only 500 of them are allowed to enter the Celestial Warrior Academy each year. At the first stage, applicants are screened based on their documents. If necessary, a preliminary selection is carried out. However, there is another way to get to the Ascension Festival. Few know, but especially gifted and talented students receive a special token in their clans, a kind of recommendation. A person recommended by a clan can participate in the Ascension Festival straight away, skipping the document check and other procedures. But initially, this system was invented to reveal hidden talents from the lower class. However, nowadays it has lost its former significance and has become a privilege for clans and noble families. But who would want to give away the opportunity to become a heavenly disciple? Besides, if this stranger fails the exam, then it would be a waste of a token. And it is worth noting that if a recommended student suddenly does something, then the one who recommended him will have to answer for it. And therefore, each clan is interested only in promoting talents from their sects or clans. As a result, this mechanism has become a tool for the entry of the powers that be. However, there is a token of the Ascending Dragon. Anyone who manages to get it will pass straight to the main exam without any problems. The guy asked, so it was him? And of course it was serious. Namgung answered that he himself said that the situation was very serious and something needed to be done urgently. The boy replied that yes, the son of the leader of the Dark Heavenly Alliance, Cal Heron, entering the Academy of Heavenly Warriors was an unusual case. They have no information about his appearance, his martial arts strength, or his personality. And about 7 years ago, the chief's eldest son, Cal Heben, the then great prince of the Heavenly Demon Pavilion, went mad due to an overflow of chi and committed massacre. And so the second prince, the son of the head of the pavilion of the Heavenly Demon Bee, was appointed as the new great prince. Until then, he had always kept in the shadow of the brothers Cal Heben and Cal Heron. But as soon as he became a great prince, Cal Heron, Cal Heben's younger brother, was immediately hidden from human eyes, as if he had never existed. It was as if they had changed places. According to the investigation, the head of the Heavenly Demon Pavilion hid him and taught him martial arts in secret. And since his older brother had massacred the pavilion's students, the leader was afraid that hired killers would be sent to kill 13-year-old Cal Heron. The boy said that the last time he saw him was when he was 12, so he doesn't know what he looks like now. Children's faces change a lot as they age. Namgung replied that he was still better than those who had never seen him. Let him find him as soon as possible and find out what he was like. He still hasn't found anyone who could guard the lady. If he does it himself, the Lord of the Murama Alliance will be at peace. The guy replied that it wasn't that he couldn't find the right person. He just rejected all his candidates. Too handsome, too stupid, too likely to fall in love with the lady, and with difficulty he found one girl, and they said about her that she was too wild and could hurt the lady. Namgung replied that he had no right to comment on this. But in any case, if he had agreed right away, then he wouldn't have had to refuse anyone. The situation is critical. There are no other options. Now the problem is no longer with Yongbi. If people from the Dark Heavenly Alliance were to sneak into the Heavenly Warrior Academy, the one in the greatest danger would be the mistress. The guy replied that if they had planned something like that, they would have sent someone else, not the son of the head of the Heavenly Alliance of Darkness. They would have taken someone they didn't feel sorry for, and then they wouldn't have the information in their hands. He heard that the father of the leader of the Heavenly Dark Alliance, Cal Heron's grandfather, had sent him a letter. He said that he wanted to send his precious grandson to the Heavenly Demon Academy to simply develop his skills and learn about the world, and that there was supposedly no malicious intent in this. At the same time, he asked that he not be singled out among other students. Namgung said that they can't relax anyway. They may seem to be at peace with them now, but they are still the Heavenly Alliance of Darkness. The boy replied that that was true, and so they decided to take the lady from the academy and send her for a month of secret training under the pretext of celebrating the birth of her mother. The guy said that yes, they had prepared a very specific and expensive elixir for her, so she would need to train in seclusion to absorb it and tame her shui. And in the meantime, he's asked to deal with all the hidden threats in the Academy of Heavenly Warriors. The guy replied that it wasn't that he didn't want to work, and it seemed like they were missing something important. There are people at the school who know him by sight, so how are they going to keep them quiet? Namgung thought about it and replied that he didn't think he should worry about it. He hadn't been seen for 10 years, so he didn't think anyone would recognize him. He had changed a lot in that time. And his face during this time, you could say, matured. The guy got angry and answered that he should just say that he grew old. And how can he get there with such a face? He clearly doesn't look 25. He won't pass the age limit. Namgung threw away the token and said that she would solve the problem. It would serve as a guarantee of his admission. Well, if someone suddenly asked about his age, he could simply say that he ate some strange medicine as a child. The guy thought, is his mug that ugly? Namgung said that he was late and would go. The guy asked if he was just ignoring him and leaving, after telling him to enroll in the Academy of Heavenly Warriors at his age. This is too much. At this time, he stood in front of the tiger's estate and thought, what is he doing here? But it turns out he is in this building. He said it was Tiger Fang Manor, not the other way around. Sue replied that he read the signs from left to right. He thought, is he crazy? What kind of nonsense is he talking? Although no, he can do anything. He's mentally ill. He asked, what about books? Sue replied that of course he reads from top to bottom. And what about those who read from bottom to top? Only signs are read from left to right. Sue said that he needed to stop talking nonsense and go get the token. And Uncle was asking such strange questions. Sue started to burst into the academy and the guard asked who he was. Sue replied, what a rude guy. Was it the first time I met him on first-name terms? And who was he? The boy replied that he was an inner disciple of the Tiger Fang estate, Kam Unsu. How dare he talk about rudeness after what he had done? They closed the doors for the Ascension Festival. What kind of atrocities did they commit here? Sue asked in surprise. Atrocities? And everyone he met on the way addressed him informally and asked why he had come. He answered politely, but they immediately began to attack. Unsu asked, why did he come here? He was listening to him. Sue replied that he needed the Ascending Dragon token to enter the Celestial Warrior Academy, and he heard that he could be found with the second disciple. Maybe he would go away. Unsu told him to shut up. How dare he demand such a thing? And if he wants to get the token, he can fight him, and immediately use the Soaring Tiger Sword technique, 26 style. Sue asked, really? And immediately after that, he used his powers against him and hit him with his fist. Sue immediately used the Dog Days, fist beating the dog. He beat him and said that he was strong in spirit. It was just that he lacked strength. Sue said that if he wins, he will tell about the token. Where is his second disciple? Can anyone call him? The guy asked what nonsense he was talking about. It was him. What did he do to their second eldest student? If the first eldest student were here, he wouldn't have behaved like that. Sue asked in surprise, this weakling is the second disciple? Did he really expect to enter the academy with such skills? Sue said that such a fool would only embarrass himself in the exams. Wouldn't it be better for him to spend the next 10 years training in the cave and give him the token? The guy told him not to talk nonsense. He wouldn't get a token from them. The boss and that guy wouldn't let it go. But suddenly someone came and asked what was going on here. He immediately began to tremble and recognize that voice. Since ancient times, it was believed that blades forged by great masters have a soul, and in critical moments they shake, warning their owners of danger. Sometimes it was even said that such blades had their own will, and the red flame is one of these spiritual weapons. And now it roared. It did not warn of danger, but rather resonated with something. He immediately turned around and recognized the man who came to them. And standing behind him, he immediately became angry and did not know what to do. The boy told he that he and they met again. He got angry and told him not to dare call him by that name. Frost Blade Kwang Cheol Su. Chulsu said it's been 10 years, but his character is still the same. Unsu asked, "What's going on here? Who is this man?" The others said it was the third senior fellow disciple. The great teacher, he finally came. And they said they beat up the second senior fellow disciple. He asked, "Is he a great teacher here?" No need to make me laugh. He was wondering why such an institution was established next to the Academy of Heavenly Warriors. So he is a freeloader and lives with these guys? Chulsu replied that of course not. The headmaster is the boy's father. He has known him for a long time and has been dropping in here periodically lately because he is away. For them, he is just an advisor. Nothing more, nothing less. Unsu said that he is the third disciple of Tiger Fang Estate School. He greets Mr. Quan, and it seems that there was a misunderstanding. Of course, he asked for advice from one of the 5 strongest sword masters, the current head of the Hall of True Warriors of the Academy of Heavenly Warriors, the respected Frostblade. But he swears that there was no other hidden intentions, and it is a great honor for them to meet with the flaming blade of the sword. But may I ask why they did all this? He said he was always like this, pretending to be lonely, grateful, outstanding. Cheol Su replied that he hadn't changed at all. Although no, he had changed a little, and not for the better. He asked what kind of nonsense he was talking about. Cheol Su asked what he was holding in his hands. It looked like a gift, or a lunchbox. Does he cook for himself now? He got angry and told him to shut up. He got angry and thought, why did this asshole make him carry this thing? He gave it to Cheol Su and said that it wasn't his. He just held it while he was warming up, so he's giving it back. Cheol Su asked who was with him. Could it really be his son? He replied that he had nothing of the sort. How dare he say such a thing? He remembered and asked how she was. Cheol Su answered that she was fine. Whenever they met, he always asked about her. Just like 20 years ago, when their paths diverged. By the way, she was pregnant then. He got angry and replied that she was 3 months pregnant. Even when they met 20 years ago, he also only asked about her well-being. And now he realized that he shouldn't have left him alive then. He showed softness because she was with the child. Cheol Su replied that he was getting something mixed up. If she hadn't persuaded him, then along with her daughter, he wouldn't be standing here on his own 2 feet now. And in any case then, now, and in the future, he will hear nothing new. She will be happy with him forever. He said he was still as shameless as he was 20 years ago. And does he have anything to say? A will, for example? Cheol Su asked, what to say? The daughter has grown up to be a real beauty. She's like her mother. She's more beautiful than her wife was in her youth. He lost his temper and shouted, how dare he rub salt into his wounds? If he's so happy, does that mean he's ready to die now? He immediately pulled out his sword and pounced on the enemy. And after that, he said that at least he had not become weaker during this time. Cheol Su said that unfortunately, the same could be said about him. He had no intention of avoiding the fight, but if he continued, it would drag on for several more days. And besides, it's not just the local guys who might suffer, but his boy as well. And so he'll ask, why did he come? What's the reason for the visit? He remembered that he came for the token. He said that he was here for one purpose. Let them give him his ascending dragon token. It won't do any good here. Unsu asked, what is he talking about? And the token rightfully belongs to the second disciple. It is unfair to try to take it away. He said that the token was created to allow talents to enter the academy. Or are they going to give such a thing to some idiot who couldn't even comprehend the intention of the sword? He asked, "Are the snowman's eyes blind? If he sends him to the academy, not only the boy will be laughed at, but him too. People will start thinking that the five strongest swordsmen are some kind of joke." He said that among those present here, only one person has the right to possess it. The cheerful fellow who came with him. He just beat the weakling with one blow. In his opinion, the proof is there. People started asking, how is this possible? Mr. Kwan, this is going too far. This is the first time in many years that they have had this opportunity. Cholsu stopped them and told them to calm down. And fortunately, he was right. Unsu had not yet learned how to handle a sword. Let them hand over the token. Unsu began to be indignant and turned to the great teacher. Cheol-su said that he had not yet earned it. In truth, with such a level, he could only dream of the Academy of Heavenly Warriors. And what happened today is his fault. He failed to teach Unsu enough. Su received his token and asked in surprise, "Is this him?" Su said that this was a special pass to the Academy of Heavenly Warriors. At this time, at the bank, the chief greeted the old man and said that he saw that a special ideal pension account was issued in his name. And now they look at the name of the owner, and he believes that he is the same teacher. The teacher replied that everything is correct. The teacher dictated the password to him and asked one of these two, right? The main one answered that to use the ideal retirement account, no password is required. Su and his warrior took the token and went on their way. The servant immediately turned to his great professor and said that even if their second eldest disciple still had much to learn, they don't agree with him just giving them the Ascending Dragon token. If they do anything wrong in the Celestial Warrior Academy, they will be the first to be blamed. Chielsu turned around and looked at the servant with his evil eyes and said that he was talking too much. And as long as he works there, it won't happen. The servant began to insist and stand his ground, saying that it's not so. But Unsu realized that everything was going badly and shut his mouth, telling him to shut up. Or is he trying to make him even angrier? The servant asked, "What do you mean, anger? He just gave the token away while the head was away, as if he was in cahoots with that red-haired bastard." Unsu replied that it was unlikely. Let him look for himself. The servant turned around and asked what he should look at. Unsu told him to just look at the path the professor had walked. Did he see what had happened to her? The guy passed his hand and replied that this was a trace of true ice ki, and it happened just now, not during the fight with the flame blade. And how does Unsu think that he does not consciously emit the ice ki? Unsu replied that he had never seen the great professor so angry. At the bank, the teacher was very surprised when he was not asked to enter a password. The boss said that printing the account number was enough to confirm the recipient. And since the recipient can't check the balance or close the account, there's no need for a password. The teacher asked in surprise, what is he carrying? And it was registered in his name. Why can't he check his balance or close it? The boss told him that he didn't seem to know the details. The CEO said the ideal retirement account he signed up for provides the recipient with alcohol, food, a cleaning service, a doctor, and 20 pieces of silver every month for the rest of their life. And now they'll see the first payment is on the 10th, so within the next few days, one of their employees will bring the money to him. The teacher asked if they would deliver it to his house every month. The boss said yes. If he was not there and could not get the money, he would just have to go to them with the stamp to pick it up. But let him mean that if he doesn't collect the amount by the end of the month, then the payment for the next month won't change. The teacher asked, does that mean they want him to hang around at home all year round? The chief replied that of course not. The young gentleman who opened the account for him had thought of everything. He signed him up for a special service that would allow him to travel anywhere in Sichuan where their Azure Dragon Bank had a branch. And the teacher is given 15 days a year to travel. They cover all expenses, and if there is a fire or other disaster, there is also an insurance plan that will allow him to repair the house twice a year. And he also signed him up for a special birthday service. May 15th, right? The chief asked. And this service will also provide him with a gold coin and a feast with the best alcohol on May 15th of each year. And of course, all this will be delivered to his home. Coming out of the bank, on the way to the teacher, the old man came up to him and said that it seemed to him that he went to the bank without looking at the frost outside. And judging by his face, communicating with bank employees was a real headache for him. The teacher replied that his headache was not them, and he didn't care about him. Let him get well soon and make sure that he would deliver alcohol immediately after that. The old man thanked the teacher for his kind words. They would find him better alcohol this time, so he should take care of himself. At this time, the mercenaries came to their boss and said that they had done everything they could, but it was not enough. The mercenary said that the special entry test would be held on the last day of the Ascension Festival. They only had 3 days left. Maybe it would be better to ask the previous leader for help. The chief said no. He wouldn't make it in time for the test. And they knew how many years he'd have to stay there. Do they really want him to wear a mask all the time? The first mercenary replied that there were no other options. The second mercenary also said that it might be the last resort, but maybe the boss would try, and it was hard to get him. The mercenary handed it over and said that it was the powder from the 10-core flower. Let him take it and try to circulate his kuai. And although the probability of success is only 30%, and in case of failure, burns will appear all over the body. The chief got very angry and stood up and told him to feed it to another person, and right now, the mercenary was surprised and asked. He himself ordered them to make him look younger than 25 at any cost. These cucumbers will not be enough. The chief asked, is he laughing or something? To hell with his skincare. To hell with everything. He doesn't care anymore. But suddenly a servant came and said that a report had arrived from the White Stone. The chief took the letter and said that it had arrived faster than he thought, and it turns out that he is the best spy they have. The head read it and said that banks now provide many different services. Be that as it may, I wonder where those disciples are who left the elder, and what are they doing now? At this time, the guy said that they were respectable, that the great soul-scorching flame heavenly blade had decided to teach at their Academy of Heavenly Warriors, and they will do everything they can to fulfill all their requirements, as well as provide them with the best housing and insurance. He said that they would see each other in 3 days, and see you soon. After that, Sue left the room and asked, did they leave? And he thought he got a job without any problems. Sue asked if he should go and see the Ascension Festival. He had heard that it was quite a spectacle. Even the innkeeper advised him to go there if he had time. And apparently everyone is interested in watching others make mistakes and embarrass themselves. And those who have passed often treat everyone present to alcohol. Sue turned to him and asked him what he thought it was like for people to see such a violent person so silent. And he was already starting to get on my nerves. But he didn't answer and just remained silent in thought. Sue immediately thought that he was pretending to be a sick rooster. As he thought, he must have poisoned that frost blade, or bucket, or whatever it was. He only knows one solution to this problem. He just needs to beat him up good. And suddenly, unexpectedly, he fell onto the table, and fell so hard that his head broke the table in front of which he was sitting. He said that he is the soul-searing flame heavenly blade, one of the 5 greatest swordsmen under the heavens. There is no way he will lose to that frost blade, Kwang Cheol Su. He shouted to the azure frost blade of the cold moon. He will deal with him soon. The servant was telling Cheol's son that they asked why he decided to teach them, but he did not answer. And anyway, in 4 days, Mr. Kwan will start working at the academy. Cheol Su replied that it was fine, and immediately signed the document. He remembered all the words of the officials who came to him and said that they were glad to see him in their ranks. But he understood that he was simply sold out. But Sue also told him that he was his mentor, so half of his salary would go to him. Let him just come when he is called. That would be enough. He knew it was all because of that devilish bastard. They were selling him to the place where that stupid snowman taught, in exchange for which everyone treated him like a saint. And in the same position as him, a martial arts teacher. He is called a great teacher. So maybe he is even lower in rank than him. And then he realized one thing, that he was being sold to work under this bastard. But it would be better if he was simply killed. It was said that when danger corners a person, he often experiences a kind of revelation. And when Yan He signed a contract to become a teacher at the Celestial Warrior Academy, he experienced one too. After several days of suffering and despair, he attained enlightenment. But Sue asked if they should go see the Ascension Festival. He asked if he was finished. He no longer saw a path ahead of him. He had nowhere to go. He was already starting to panic and screaming at Sue not to choose for him how he should live, and what sins he had committed to deserve this. Suddenly, he came to his senses and heard the voice of his mentor. The mentor told him that this was all his choice, so there was no need to be sad. And he has nothing to regret. But maybe except for one thing, he was never able to find the ideal successor for Tai Chi, one that could use the two techniques he had passed on to them, blue ice and red flame Tai Chi, together as one. And to drive away the dark skies that will one day come to these lands again, he wants the red flame to find such a successor for him. He replied that he would find it. If this snowman can't, then he certainly can. But don't talk as if he's dying. And why aren't his wounds healing? Who wounded him? The mentor did not answer his question and simply thanked him for the promise. And he thought the tea was especially aromatic today. He felt very hurt after these words and looked around to find his mentor. But he remembered that the master had told him to find a successor for Tai Chi. Although he had been looking for 20 years, he had never found one. And at some point, he forgot about his last words. He couldn't keep his promise to his mentor. That's why he ended up in this hell. And if you think about it, that day that he now constantly remembers. It was the 20th anniversary of his mentor's death. He could no longer cope with the sadness and decided to go out and get drunk. But this crazy devil came out of nowhere and forced himself into being his mentor. Was this divine punishment for not keeping his promise? He thought that even if the teacher said so, the vile snowman lived like he was in heaven. Why should he suffer in hell? And suddenly he decided that this meant that this bastard was always looking for a successor for Tai Chi. This was his motivation for becoming a cold-blooded teacher at the academy. And now he had to find a successor for Tai Chi among all these kids. And he understood that all the little ones of this world were gathering there. And the devil drags him to this academy because there is the best chance of meeting a successor there. He started getting angry and saying that he was a stupid snowman. He couldn't find a successor even though he had been there for so long. And his mentor, who had become so proud, couldn't stand his stupidity any longer. He had prepared this fate for him. Well then, let the receiver just wait for him. He'll find him before the snowman does. He slammed his fists against the wall and said that he is a flame blade. He is one of the 5 greatest swordsmen under the heavens. And he will never lose to this frost blade, Kwang Chil Su. The mentor kept telling him that this is their real battle. He went out into the city and understood that he now needed to keep a closer eye on the students. One of the students said that he probably failed because of the second test. He needed to practice his movement art more, and the teacher would kill him if he found out. The second student also said that he failed. Next year, he will not pass due to age. Maybe he should just run away and never come back. The other students were also not happy and shouted over and over again how they could fail. And he knew that the receiver was not among these guys. And suddenly Sue came and said that as he thought, it was nice to see such a lively scene. And how? And he told him that he would be refreshed. Sue said that as a thank you, he could buy him dinner. He got hired today. Surely he wanted to treat him to something in honor of that. And what about meat? But he thought about it at that moment and thought, is this really a mad bastard of a successor? But that can't be. After all, the successor of Tai Chi must be similar to his mentor, who was able to combine 2 completely opposite auras. Sue asked him if he really meant to say that he didn't like meat, but he thought and understood that he should at least be able to use different martial arts in his left and right hands at the same time. That's definitely not him. And what's more, he doesn't give off a pure aura like a mentor. He's just... Sue said that since he's being treated, he's willing to compromise. He'll order meat for himself, and he can eat grass. He knew he was absolutely useless. All minuses, no pluses, demonic enemy of humanity. But Sue looked and said that he thought there was a very expensive restaurant over there. Maybe they should go there? But he said that for the sake of his great master, he would not give up. He would polish his skills until he could defeat this demon. Entering the restaurant, Sue told he to look at how busy it was. And why was he turning his head? Looking for someone? He decided that he would take on the burden of being a mentor and find a successor for Tai Chi. Suddenly, one of the students started shouting that after 5 years, he had finally managed to get in. And today, all the drinks are on him. Let them grab the cups and praise him. Everyone who was accepted must be friends from next week. He knew that although there were many useless kids in the academy, given its size, he would sooner or later find a successor for Tai Chi there. Envious people began to say that they should look at this beggar who boasted of his modest wealth. The guy said he was sure he was proud of himself because he worked hard from scratch and got in without a badge. But the special exam was coming up soon. Shouldn't he drink less? The second guy told him not to worry about him. He's been spending a lot of gold on herbs and medicine since he was a kid, so it won't affect him at all. And anyway, he's pretty lonely today and suggested looking for girls. He thought that, in fact, the Academy of Heavenly Warriors is very large. The receiver can be found anywhere. But suddenly they heard someone screaming behind them. The guy bumped into the others and apologized. The guy asked the poor guy if he thought just apologizing was enough. He looked like a nobody from a nameless cult. And what kind of impudence did he have to push him, Jay Sop So, a disciple of Mount Huashan? The second disciple asked, did he only push him? What's more shocking is that he pushed him too. He didn't recognize him? A disciple of the Dianking sect, no daping. Sop So asked in surprise, what? The guy wants to say that he offended him more than him? But he answered that yes, they will both be at a special exam, but they can have a small duel now. He looked at them and hoped that he could find a suitable successor in the Celestial Warrior Academy. The next day, he came to the academy and said, this is strange. And what is he looking at? An hour ago, the man from the shop told Sue that he was number 13. The special exam consisted of 4 duels, and he would be judged by his skills, not by victories or defeats. And he should wait until he was called. He was sure at this moment that they were saying that there would be a duel. But now, that bastard from Mount Huashan, who was making a fuss here yesterday. And the second one is from the Diankang sect, who was standing next to him. And that guy who was picking up girls, he's probably from the Jinzhou clan. And he doesn't even want to know anything about the golden pig that ate too many herbs. He doesn't care. They may be from noble families, but this is no longer a duel. Sue fought alongside them and mocked them, asking why everyone was so weak. And he noticed that it was a hell of a beating. The leader said at the academy that this guy was too fierce. Even if they judge him by his skills, isn't that too much? If they accept such a person, what is the difference between him and the evil forces? The man replied that it was bad. The precious talents of the Diankang sect and Mount Huashan, the Jinzhou family and the Golden Fortune Bank had suffered so much that they could blame them. Chiel Su said, what should they do with Bai Ruin from the Thunder Smashing School? Can Teacher Flameblade share his thoughts? He was surprised that he was asking him, and now this was a chance to embarrass this little demon? But you shouldn't do that, because if Sue finds out about it later, he doesn't want to stand up for this bastard. Better to eat shit. He got angry and asked why he was asking him, and what did he want to achieve by doing this? And what did he want to hear from him? The man standing next to him asked the master about the flaming blade. He wouldn't burn it because of one question, right? And they know about his skills, so let him not kill them. The old man also said that they are all teachers here. It is important for him to respect each other. He may not like it, of course, but they need to talk to each other respectfully because children are watching them. He replied that he had simply asked a strange question. Cholsu asked, didn't he bring that guy to the Tiger Fang mansion and go with him to the exam today? Only he knows him. And he knows why the question seems strange to him, or why he is so angry. The others sensed that the great teacher was angry. It seems that he can be angry too. Cholsu said, however, it's true that they don't make any special restrictions for those who come with a token, but they're not only interested in skills. And you need to make sure that he is part of the forces of light. They are obliged to calculate those who came with evil intentions. And so they ask the students to fill out forms on the day of the exam. But there is not even a hint of sincerity. And now that Mr. Flameblade has seen the form, nothing bothers him? He replied that this student always communicates like this. The man said that he had never even seen such a serve. And what about his mentor's name? If he's hiding it, they should at least know why. And what's with the confidentiality thing? And also the name of his sect, the Meadow of Flying Lightning, does it even exist? And does Mr. Flameblade know about it? He replied that he also heard about her for the first time today, and he thought, why is he being cornered because of this devil? Cholsu asked, did he make it up for the presentation? I wonder if Ryan is his real name? During the exam, he also only used basic techniques. Why is he hiding his identity so much? And let the Flameblade explain why Ryuan wants to enter the academy. And then he replied that this was his real name, and I realized that the guy really wasn't hiding his name. And now about the origin, maybe he's from hell? He said he didn't know his background or history, but the reason he went to the academy wasn't out of any evil intent. He just wanted free food and a place to sleep. The teacher said that they should regard their Heavenly Warrior Academy which exists for the purpose of cultivating talents for the forces of justice, as a free hotel. But the man asked, "What is this stupid reason?" Talented students from noble families suffered because of this imbecile. The disciple from Mount Huanai's jaw was so damaged that he would not be able to chew for half a year. The one from Diankong would not be able to walk for a year. And yet he is luckier than the second son of the head of the Golden Fortune Bank, whose intestines are so damaged that he will have to eat only crumbs of food for the rest of his life. As for the disciple from the Jeju clan, his fist is broken, so he will have to forget about his fist art forever. How could some greedy, lazy person do such a thing to such distinguished students? "What a disgrace," he asked in surprise. "A disgrace." He said that it was abnormal for him to want to eat for free, but it was good that he got rid of those four. And from what he saw last night at the nearest bar, the golden pig and the master of the fist had been talking about girls all night, discussing where they could find the scent of a bachelor. As for those brats from Huanan and Diankong, they bullied the poor kid who bumped into him by chance, and then started fighting with each other because of pride. Are these the kind of students the Academy considers good? From what he had heard from them, disciples without a pedigree were worth no more than dogs and pigs. From the way they all pampered and cherished them, it seemed to him that they agreed with such conclusions. The teacher replied that of course not. They didn't know they were such idiots. And it turns out that B. Ruben did this to them because he wanted to deal with the scoundrels. Another teacher said that it seemed like there was a misunderstanding. They were all surprised that he actually did it on purpose, and they thought that he beat them up for no reason. Chiel Su said that since the flame blade itself is protecting him, then everything is fine. If what the flame blade said is true, now we need to deal with the applicant named B. Ryun like this. And since the flaming blade vouches for him, and also he happens to be up to their standards in terms of skills, and they should accept him into the Celestial Warrior Academy. But they will mark him as a special candidate and assign someone to keep an eye on him. And if he does anything that threatens the safety of the Academy, then Mr. Flameblade will be held accountable, at the very least dismissal from the Academy, and possibly more severe, depending on the situation. Ruin asked, "Are they finished yet?" He thought the snowman was trying to scare him. "He won't be here for long. As soon as he finds a successor for Taichi, he'll leave." Ruin asked him what was taking so long. He came up to him and said that he had been accepted, but Chiol Su told him that if he wasn't in cahoots with this guy, it was better not to tell him about the supervision. It was better for him not to worry. Ruin said that he got in, of course. Why repeat? They wanted to give him a scholarship too. Free tuition and a scholarship? He said that of course not. He felt at that moment that he wanted to tell him to be more careful, but let everything go as it goes. Ruin said they'd better discuss the rest over dinner, and sure enough, he'd treat him to a meal to celebrate his admission. He was surprised and asked, why him? Demonic bastard. He would never warn him about surveillance. Jiren said that so much time had passed since they returned from Mount Emi. The time they spent there was already like a dream. Namgung said he was curious about how the mentor was doing. The training there was hard, but they became stronger. It was all thanks to him. I would like to visit him someday and thank him. And then Ryan came up behind them and said that he thought they were grateful. Namgung got scared and said that he looked different, but he was the mentor. Jiren was also very surprised and asked how the mentor got into the academy. Ryun was surprised and asked, did they recognize him? And how are they doing? Suddenly, the other students came up and asked the mentor if he had undergone rejuvenation. The students also couldn't believe it and asked, is this handsome guy their mentor? He looks so talented and smart. Soon the whole academy will be on its ears. The girl asked, what is this? She came because she heard that the mentor came back. But here is some handsome guy instead of him. Ruin replied that it was true. Not a word of lies, their fawning skills had grown. And then, should we start a special training to celebrate their reunion? The next day, teacher said that today, the proud new students of the Heavenly Warrior Academy had gathered together. Let them remember that they are all pillars on which the forces of justice will stand. The main characteristics of the students of the Academy are honor, loyalty, respect, and strength. Everyone else looked at Rian and thought, how can he sleep at a time like this? With that grin, he looks like an idiot about to fall asleep. How did they even let him in here? And judging by his clothes, he wasn't even from a noble clan. Ryun realized that it was true. At the entrance ceremony of the Heavenly Warrior Academy, the dream was more interesting. The teacher said that next they would welcome the new students, and they should begin the congratulatory ceremony from the past graduates. Buren was already tired and wondered how much longer they would chatter. If he sat here even a little longer, he would die of suffocation. But he had no choice. Ruin took his time and decided that now was the time to run. The other students turned around and saw that he had disappeared. But where to? They hadn't even seen him move. Ruin climbed onto the roof at this time and felt that the breeze was cool, of course, but the sun was pleasantly warm. Maybe he should take a nap until the end of the ceremony, he thought. But suddenly, opening his eyes, he saw a guy in front of him who immediately greeted him. The guy said that he didn't think that someone would also come up with such an idea. Ruin asked him who he was. The boy replied that his name was Heron, but his new friends call him Elginma of the Twin Swords, although he doesn't think he deserves the nickname. Heron asked if he was also bored with this pompous ceremony. What an unexpected meeting. And it seemed he had more and more friends. At this time, one of the teachers looked at the roof and saw people he knew, and now he understood where Ruin had disappeared to. Ruin told the boy that all this was interesting, of course, but could he move a little to the side? He was blocking the sun. Heron stepped aside and said it was his fault. The guy who was watching him at the time decided that he wanted to take a nap too, and last night he had slept for 2 hours at most. At that time, the pub was saying that the previous leader was an old swindler. He kept saying how he would have more freedom when he became the leader of the Shadowless Squad. The guy thanked the man for letting them know. They weren't going to take his job, so he should have a drink and stay put as long as he could. The second guy also said that he was sure he had a lot of work to do. But could he look at these documents before he left? The guy got angry and replied that he was joking. The position of the head is awesome. You can decide everything yourself and squander a lot of money. Aren't they jealous? Work hard and one day they too can take this position. The boy told the chief not to waste his energy. It would only work for the hard workers who face danger every day. Anyway, here are some skin rejuvenation supplements for him to take. He'll bring more tomorrow. And he needs to look as young as possible for the entrance ceremony tomorrow. The headmaster told him to shut up. They're the ones making him clean up so they don't screw up while he's gone. The guy told him to read it before the end of the day, especially the document on top. It just came from the Celestial Warrior Academy, so let him look at it right away. The leader asked in surprise, did they choose the name Heron for him? He understands that ordinary people don't know who he is, but they didn't try at all. But suddenly he caught his eye and asked, "What is this? Could it be that the hot-tempered idiot brought some mysterious kid with him?" And these two met right at the ceremony. Don't they know they're being watched? And how should he understand that? The training would not have allowed such a mistake. And anyway, first he would observe them, and then he would figure everything out. Ruin told the boy that his clothes looked new. Is it okay if he gets them dirty? Heron replied that everything was fine as long as he was fine. And surely it was possible to talk to him without formalities. Ruin replied that of course, and introduced himself as by Ruin, and immediately extended his hand to introduce himself. Heron told him that it was like someone was watching them. Ruin said that he knew that someone had been staring at them since he got up. Was someone following him? Heron asked in surprise, after him? He didn't remember having fans. Maybe he wanted them to come back to the ceremony? Ruin asked in surprise, he thinks so? Then they won't pay attention to him. He doesn't care at all. Of course, he can ask if it bothers him. Heron replied that he would never do that. If he was noticed on the first day of school, it would only get better. That was great. But suddenly Heron stood up and said that the ceremony seemed to be over. Whoever was watching them seemed to have left too. Heron suggested that they go and find rooms and then go get something to eat. They needed to go to the Pure Heart building. Ruin asked, the Pure Heart building? Had they been accommodated there? Heron said no. All the newcomers were told to gather there after the ceremony. That was what they said at the very beginning. Or had he already bailed? Ruin replied that he probably didn't. He just slept standing up. Heron asked, did that mean he had heard the rest? The guy asked, what else was there? The moment the entrance ceremony ends, the door to the real world of Ganho will open for them. The caretaker of the Pure Heart building said that the Academy of Heavenly Warriors is more than just an educational institution. It is Ganho itself, and they are the future emperors of the forces of light. They stand here to protect the world from evil. They will become independent, but also learn to rely on each other and move forward. And so their first task is to find their rooms on their own. Now they will receive colored notes. The first points they will have to get to will be written on them. And let them forget about following others. They have prepared more than 50 different places and will check their notes. And when they get to the first point, they will know where their rooms are. They will also be able to pick up their lunch and room key there. And of course, getting to the first point will not be easy. The leader looked at Ruin and saw that they had black cards. The chief asked the elder, "Can he have a black one?" The elder asked in surprise, "Black? Really?" The chief replied that yes, he really liked the black color. The elder replied that he could not choose the color. The elder thought, what kind of old man is this? Is he really a new student? Or maybe the instructor came to check. And why is he black? The chief told him in secret that he couldn't choose the color, but the elder could. He just wanted to keep an eye on those two idiots. The elder realized that this old man obviously knew something, and if he wanted to watch, he wouldn't interfere, and he would just give him this piece of paper. The elder looked and gave him a black paper. The chief immediately grabbed him and thanked him for his assistance. The chief looked and said that it turned out to be this place, and it seemed to him that they had really been noticed. Ruin asked in surprise, "The forest of the small passage? Does the guy know where it is?" Heron answered that he is not sure, but since this is the first point, he will not have to look for it for long. The boss said that if they were paying attention, they already knew that the first points were located in places where new students could enter. And so they are located inside the forest of the small passage, the land of the single pillar, the building of the heavenly king, and the land of the seeking sword. And if they use the search for a place as an excuse to enter restricted territory or to damage academy property, they will be held accountable. The chief raised his hand in a sign of good luck and said that he wished them all good luck, and they could go. Heron said it seemed they couldn't go anywhere they wanted, and he had no idea where those 4 places were. Rune replied that it was unfair that everyone had been told except them. Who cares? And suggested that they just look around. The gentleman asked, "The forest of the small passage. It was he who sent them there, right? They will have a hard time. It is difficult even to get there, but the main test will begin after." He heard that the guy from Tiger Fang Manor asked for help from the Golden Fortune Bank and the Jinzhou clan, so they were well prepared. And besides that guy, 2 more got the black note. The boss replied that one of them looked like his friend, so they were put together. And the second one asked for it himself. They volunteered themselves, so he can't do anything about it. The gentleman started laughing and said no matter what happened to them, they didn't care. Will this Ruan survive the night? The chief replied that it would be difficult for him to leave in one piece, and hoped that they would leave him alive. After all, only then would it be their turn. On the way, Heron asked if they hadn't passed through here before. Ruin replied that it seemed so. Heron said that he thought they were going around in circles. Could this place be a high-ranking formation? Ruin replied that they had difficulty getting here because of these formations. So now it's also unclear how to get out. He didn't know the academy was so big. Maybe he should tear everything to pieces and pave the way himself. Heron replied that he was almost inclined to agree, and suddenly a guy came up to them and said that perhaps he was on their way. The guy introduced himself as Chang Hong, and he was also a new student. Ryun and Heron answered, who was he trying to fool? Chang Hong replied that he was serious. Let them see that he was given a piece of paper too. Heron said that was strange. Doesn't the academy only accept those between 20 and 25? Ryun also said that he thought so too, but maybe this old man gave a bribe? Has the academy already sunk to such a level? What a disappointment. Chang Hong replied that he could hear them. You can offend a person with such words. Heron told Ryun that he didn't think that was the case. Even rich kids flunked out of the entrance exams in a jiffy, and he didn't look any richer than them. Ruin replied that he didn't look poor either. How could the academy accept such an old man without a bribe? Chang Hong asked if they could just listen to him. Ruin asked if maybe he looked so pathetic that they decided to take him in. Yeah, the academy seemed like a great place for an old man, especially with the free food and lodging. Heron asked if that was true. Chun Hong said of course not. It would be better if they said he gave a bribe. Ryun decided to talk to his friend and said no. It seems like they heard him. And anyway, he looks about 40. Wouldn't it be too much to say he's young? Heron asked if they could pretend to believe him. Chung Hong said it was late. And what do you mean 40? He doesn't look that old. And he accepts the fact that he looks old, but they are too rude. And he looks like that because he ate the wrong medicine when he was a kid. How can they not be ashamed of themselves for behaving like that? They just met for the first time. Heron asked the boy again if they could pretend to believe him. Ruan replied that even if they continued to argue with him, they would not understand anything, so it would be better to continue looking for the way. And now they will repeat themselves and tell him that they believe and ask where to go. Chun Hong said that they speak more quietly on purpose, but he hears them. Ruan said that he understood it and asked by any chance he didn't know how to get to this place. And this is the forest of the small passage. They've been searching for an hour now and barely made it to the lands of the sword seeker or whatever it's called, but they've been stuck here for over an hour. Chung Hong replied that the entire academy was covered in defensive formations, but not enough to take 2 hours to get here. Don't they have any acquaintances at the academy? Even if that's the case, they did tell us where to go during the ceremony. Rian replied that he didn't know anyone here. Heron also decided to say that he didn't know anything either, but it was good that they met someone who knew the way. Chung Hong said that he was surprised that they didn't know anything at all. So they don't understand how this place works, right? But in Muram, there is an academy of heavenly warriors, and it is filled with talents from famous clans and sects. The academy was originally created to train future experts, but by order of the current leaders of the Murama Alliance, the Heavenly Justice Alliance, it was built as a fort for the forces of justice. And its total area is more than 2 million square meters. If necessary, it can shelter up to 100,000 people. Within its walls are rich fields that stretch from the lake to the meadows. They grow cereals, vegetables, fruits, and even breed animals there. In a special case, it is possible to seal all entrances and remain isolated from the outside world for more than a year. The internal and external gates are 3 meters thick and are always sealed with a 30-centimeter thick steel door. The main gate is always guarded by about 20 students and 30 guards. To the left and right of the gate are the first and second guard towers, each with about 30 students and guards. And if the enemy can break through the main gate despite all this, they will have to pass through the 7 buildings of the one-pillar land, which will be closest to them. And when they pass the last building, they will run into a concealment formation. This is the building of the Heavenly King and the land of the single pillar. And the enemies who enter the academy without knowing anything will run like rats in a labyrinth. And then they will be finished off by the guards and students who will come out of one of the 12 defensive towers. And the further they go, the more confusing the formation will become. In the second lake, but it will be more difficult to navigate than in the building of the Heavenly King. And in the lands of the Sword Seeker, it will be most difficult to find the way. And so it is obvious that students who do not listen to their elders will be lost. The Celestial Warrior Academy is built on the 3 teachings that are the foundation for the famous clans and sects. And so if the students are familiar with them, they will be able to find clues. Chung Hong asked, do they know about Buddhist teachings? In order to find the way to the lands of the Sword Seeker, it is important to understand them. Rayan replied that there is no meat there, and shave your head so that your head shines. Heron said that you can't hang out with women to free yourself from shackles and achieve enlightenment. Surprising. Hanhong said that next time they were asked this question, they should just say that they didn't know. As for the teachings of Confucianism and Taoism, they didn't know those either, right? And about the 64 hexagrams of the Book of Changes. Rayan asked if they knew. Would they still be wandering around here? They would already be sitting in their rooms. Heron answered that it was true. Chung Hong understood that the previous number 47 and the leader of the Shadowless Squad, Chung Hong did not want to tell them the way. He just needed time to analyze them. Ruin told him to wait and ask, why is he still here if he knows so much? Is he just talking nonsense to make them think he knows more than them? Heron told his friend that it was a good idea. Chung Hong knew that he really wanted them to get lost. He especially didn't want to help this Heron. It would be great if they got even more lost. And he doesn't say anything about this brunette. Not only does he lack common sense, he also thinks superficially. You can't call him innocent, he would say that he has lost his way. Han Han said that they should listen to him. He had not gotten lost yet. He was walking here. The lands of the Sword Seeker are dangerous and are used for solitary training, various mental states. That's why there are mid-rank formations everywhere you go. But in the forest of the small passage, there is a high-rank formation for training. It is built so that most people get lost in it. Even its name speaks for itself. It is 62 hexagrams out of 64, an overdevelopment of the small Thunder Mountain. This means that one must be careful to cross the lightning-filled lands. It is difficult to get there, and even more difficult to get out. Ruin asked his friend what the old man was saying. Heron replied that he didn't know, but it sounded scary. Chung Hong thought the same thing. They don't understand. Chung Hong said that, simply put, it is a very complex maze with a special mechanism. Every 2 hours, one or two of the 6 sequences change randomly. And from what he saw, the second and third lines from the top change, turning into a hexagram of water and mountain, so it is very, very difficult here now. So he stayed away. In the worst case, you can get lost in the labyrinth forever. The boys decided to lie down and think. Chun Hong asked them what they were doing. Rayun replied that he would sleep. He said that they wouldn't find the way themselves anyway, didn't he? He could just let them know when it was time to go. Heron told the boy that he needed to rest too. They would just follow him, but he would have to find his way. Chung Hong asked why they thought he would do everything. And how could they trust him since it was their first time seeing each other? Wouldn't it be better for them to find their own way? Chung Hong asked, what if he can't find the way? Will they lie there further? Ryun answered that he doesn't know. He thinks he'll have to break something here. Maybe they won't notice if they break a little. Heron started laughing and said that they could get kicked out on the first day for this. He just trusted him and would wait. Chung Hong understood that they wanted him to find a way for them. But shouldn't the guy from the Heavenly Demon Pavilion try a little harder? Even spies have duties. And this guy. But suddenly Ruin thought about it and heard strange sounds. Chung Hong replied that it was the sound of the formation changing. Let them both stand up. An hour later, they were already on the road, and Rayan said that it seemed like they got out just in time. And he didn't know that there could be something like that. It was fun. Heron replied that yes, they were able to enjoy the walk thanks to Chan's help. Can you say that it was unexpected when the ground disappeared from under your feet? Coming out of the forest, Chun Hong thought, why did he have to deal with all this at such a young age? And suddenly a large stone fell in front of him, and he got scared. Chung Hong said that they had to move the center of the stone with a precise attack, but they couldn't break it. Can they handle it? Chung Hong did everything for them and opened the passage and said that their lunch, keys to the rooms, and a note with directions to the rooms were downstairs. Someone had to take everything without stepping on the floor. Ruin said the cloth is slipping. He'll pull it slowly, so let it go easy. After a difficult task, Chung Hong lay down on the ground and decided that he wanted to resign. Someone smart should be put in charge and resign. Ruin said that they got out and asked what happened to the road. The road looks terrible. It feels like something will definitely happen if they go there. Heron replied that there was no sense of safety there. Ruin said that he didn't want to go there, but since they had already gone this far, there was no turning back. And in that case, they would just have to run. At this time to the west of the second lake. But the sector of Bright Yang, in the residential area of male students. The guy asked, is this the first point? He heard that it is in the westernmost part. The second student replied that they had been walking for so long, even after studying everything in advance. Thank God he met them, otherwise he would have gotten lost. The third student also laughed and said that he did the same, and his older brother was a third-year student, so he told him everything in advance. But even so, it was quite difficult to get there. The boy turned to the younger one and said, listen here. Let them line up to get a certificate of completion of the first task and find the rooms before going to the warehouse for things. And they can pick up their luggage at the warehouse. They will check everything carefully, so there is no need to pick up someone else's. The student asked if they could just take their things and go to their rooms. The second student was surprised at this point and asked what was wrong. The disciple said that the initiation of new students is a tradition of the Heavenly Warrior Academy. It seems that there are traps on the first floor and that the elders are waiting for them there. He also heard that a ghost even appeared once. The boy asked in surprise, really? He had never heard of such a thing. The second student asked, why then is there nothing like that this year? What a pity, he had been preparing for it. The elder asked, is this what they want? Let them be grateful that they were assigned to the first building. The others are very busy now. The students immediately started to get scared and say that everything is fine with them, and they apologized for talking nonsense. The elder said that it was as he thought. They are in the first room on the 5th floor. Here is the key to their room. They took the key to the first building at the first point, right? And their luggage should already be in the room, so they can go straight there. The guy thanked them and told them to take care of it. The elder asked the boy why he was so polite. They should be thanking them. The second elder also said yes, although it is a bit run down, but welcome to the first building. The student asked who he was. They were so polite. They even carried his things. The second student replied that he didn't know. Was it really the first room on the top floor of the first building? And isn't this the room for those who won first place in the regular and special exams? And then the guy realized and said that the person in front of them was famous. The student asked, is first place given for beauty? He's an expert in beauty or something. And it can't be. They don't happen to know who he is, right? The guy replied that yes. It was the first time he had seen him in real life, but he was probably strong enough to defeat most of the instructors. After all, he is the grandson of the Holy Sword and the strong one of the Moen family. But what is the divine sword of 7 cuts, Moen Hui? Moen Hui entered the room into his room and was a little surprised. He immediately went to the table and saw that it was dirty and no one had lived there for a long time. Hui opened the windows in front of him and pulled out his brush to clean up his room a bit. After the distribution, the student said that he was alone on the 4th floor. What a pity. And he would visit them as he settled in. The guy told them to come to him. He wanted to go for a walk, but they were told not to go down to the 1st floor until the bell rang. But one of the guys noticed something and said that all the elders ran away, as if something happened. I wonder what's going on down there. The older man asked if all the new students were up there yet. The guy replied that yes, he had just double-checked everything. Everyone was there except 3. The elder replied that it was good then. Would they call him and start preparing? The elder began to worry and wondered if they would return from the labyrinth before nightfall. And even if they escape the labyrinth, he wonders if they can get through the corridor full of traps. But the boy came up with the older one and asked, are they on duty today? Let them make sure that the new students don't get into the corridor with traps. And the mechanisms are activated only in emergency cases, but they can enter the forest of the small passage of the lands of the sword seekers. The elder replied that yes, everything is fine. There is no need to worry. But after that, something happened. And turning around, they saw that a passage from the danger zone had opened. And it turns out that it will work as it should. The boy asked, what if they die? The elder replied that he was talking. It is difficult enough to get out of the forest of the small passage. But what kind of psycho would decide to go through this corridor? Heron asked, would they just run? Chang Hong said to be careful. People have heads on their shoulders for a reason. They'd better come up with a plan. Suddenly, a trap was triggered from the passage, which was aimed at Ryuan. He immediately dodged and it hit a tree. Chang Hong looked and saw that this arrow. What kind of crazy bastard set the trap corridor to the highest difficulty? Chang Hong shouted at him to get out of there quickly. He realized that this was definitely not an initiation joke. This brunette could die. Ruin entered the passage and looking around, he saw that there was blood on the wall. And again, arrows came at him. The boys immediately dodged the street. Ruan said that this was such a mess. What should he do next? But Rian didn't stop and started walking forward without fear. Chang Hong asked, what the hell is this? Can people even move like that? But Ruan walked and dodged every attack. Heron said no. He was just like an octopus, and it seemed his friend had gone beyond human capabilities. But Ruan came out of the passage unharmed. Chang Hong said, that couldn't be. Now he's like a bird? Heron said that it couldn't be. He really had become a bird. But suddenly he noticed something and shouted at him to be careful. There in front. But looking in front of him, he saw large blocks flying at him. He was not afraid and jumped into the air. Chang Hong asked him why he was smiling. Heron replied that it looked very funny. The guy said that he was speechless. Heron thought and replied that if he could do that, Chang Hong said that they couldn't lose to him either. And they themselves also ran into the passage. Chang Hong threw away his cloak and said he would do the ones in front and below. Heron replied that he would do the ones in the back and above. Immediately after these words, arrows flew at them. The boys coped with them easily and said that it was nothing. Things got even more complicated as arrows started flying from the buildings. Chang Hong told the guy to make sure he didn't miss a single one. He still has so much to do. He's so young. Heron replied that the last sentence was questionable, but he would try. Ruin looked and said, isn't it cheating to block and not dodge? It seems even boring. Heron apologized to Ruin and said that he was still a human. Chung Hong also replied that fish shouldn't interfere in human affairs. But Ryun shouted that he could already see the end. Heron replied that it was good, but he thought that Ryan was not alone here. No longer human. Chung Hong said that, as they say, even if he is in the middle of a field of spiders, it is better to be alive than dead. The students gathered in the hallway and asked, "Does that mean they can't go down below the third floor? Until when then?" The elder replied that he was not sure. The elders do not let him through. He asked them what was going on downstairs, but no one answered. The elder asked him if he was so curious. He could send him down if he really wanted to, but it would be harder to get up. Did he really want that? The guy thought, maybe they should just wait in their rooms. Whatever happens there, it's better to stay here. One of the students said that they are making so much noise here, but he is not interested in what is going on here. Is he meditating there or what? The guy replied that yes, you wouldn't expect anything else from a divine sword. He's not like the rest of them. You need to go back and train. At this time, Manhwa was in his room cleaning, because he loved cleanliness and just dirt upset him. When Ruin got out, he asked, "Is this the right place?" But there is something wrong. Heron said yes. It looks like a scary present that was wrapped too tightly, and they will be in danger if they unwrap it incorrectly. Chung Hong said that this time he would go, and he would find out who had such a great idea to do this to them. And closing them in the forest is a prank, but the traps on high difficulty are too much. And it's a shared house, so it should be fine. There should be new students and repeaters here. If they're not crazy, then they're crazy bastards. Suddenly the gates opened in front of him, and Chung Hong said that this place was even more dangerous than before. They wouldn't be able to gallop past it from the ceiling, and he would check it first. Chung Hong knew in his head that these scoundrels were from the Heavenly Scoundrel Academy. They could kill the son of the Dark Heavenly Alliance leader on the first day. If that happened, a war would break out. Heron said that if it was so dangerous, they could go first. Does he know? They were at least 10 years younger. Ruin asked him, what was he saying? At least 20 years. Chung Hong told them to stop and asked how about listening when someone speaks, and he's only 25. The carnage began after the doors were closed. Ryun asked, "Isn't that too much? It's kind of mean to attack them in the dark. If he's not careful, they'll rip out his third nostril." Heron started laughing and said that he almost got a second belly button. Would Ryan stop for a moment? They'd better go when Chung turns on the light. Chung Hong asked what made him think he could do that. He wasn't the manager here. Ruin told him to give them the light. He knew the guy could do it, and suddenly the light turned on in front of them. Chung Hong lit a candle and said that their praise had nothing to do with it. Thank God he had this thing with him. Ruin asked, what's this? Was he a traveling merchant or something like that before the academy, and decided to enroll in order to push his wares to students? Chung Hong asked what he was talking about. He was just coming prepared, because he had heard that initiation could be brutal. He was just a young new student. They were the ones who weren't prepared. They'll burn for about 15 minutes, so no need to waste time. Ruin said he'll throw them away. Heron said that then he is in the middle. Chung Hong replied that there are many of them, so it is necessary to illuminate as many as possible. They threw the candles along the way, and Ryun asked if it was too cruel. But suddenly Chung Hong saw something and told them to go back. Suddenly a trap appeared in front of them that would cut them into pieces. Ryun asked, do they really want them to go through this? Is this a provocation? Heron replied that it seemed so, but didn't a strange sound just now come from? Chung Hong replied that it came from the stairs ahead. After that, a clue opened up in front of them and told them to ring the bell and the road would open. Ruin said they just need to ring the bell. Isn't that too easy? It should ring if they break the whole building, right? Heron started laughing and replied that then they really could get kicked out on the first day. Maybe they should just go through. Chung Hong replied that after they left, they would report everything to the academy. But he heard the doors closing, so he thought they wouldn't listen to him anyway. Ruin jumped out and said that it would be shameful to break their sleeping places. Better to go and then call. Chung Hong looked and said that as he thought, the guy ignored his words. Heron replied that it would be enough for him to just shine from behind. Chung Hong told him not to worry about him. His legs are pretty hard. The candle is expensive, so it's hard to blow out. Standing on iron bars, they stood on the brink of death. But after that, arrows flew at them again, and they had to fight back. But Ruin made a different decision and used the gyration. Chung Hong thought, what should he even call it? Body arts? But it's too powerful for such a simple name. but he wonders what kind of weapon he used until now. Ryan was walking around without a sword, so he knew he was hiding something. Ruin didn't stop there and used his Phoenix Flight celestial rotation, and Chang Hong realized that his entire body was a weapon. Suddenly, Ruin saw a big problem in front of him. Chang Hong immediately asked, "Is this really the aura of a sword?" But Ruin wasn't scared at all and decided to use his lightning-controlling hands. Heron was shouting at him to be careful. After the big explosion, they saw fragments in front of them. Chung Hong said that it was very dangerous, but Heron was not afraid and began to move forward, beating off all the fragments that wanted to destroy them. Chung Hong looked at this and wondered what this was, but Heron did not stop and used the Great Bird Sky Barrier. But Chung Hong saw the sword barrier flying towards them again, and he thought, why are they both so strong? And now he had to suppress them if everything went wrong? And such monsters. But suddenly he heard a sound and thought that in the end, he had destroyed everything just to ring the bell. Ruin did a very good job of this task and moved to a safe place for them. Ruin asked, did they pass since the bell was ringing? This elder is shamelessly standing there to attack them. Heron said that it seemed that the villain had shown himself. Shahan also replied that he thought so too. He immediately noticed that this giant sword was a divine weapon from the Tiger Fang estate, then the evil tiger. And then the enemy held out his sword and said that bandits don't need respect. Ruin asked in surprise, bandits? He stole something from the academy? He would have had time for that. He only enrolled today. The enemy replied that as he thought, this guy is shameless. Has he forgotten about the Tiger Fang estate? Ruin asked, Tiger Fang Manor. He seemed to have been there once. The enemy asked in surprise, had he? He turned his sect into a mess and stole the token of the ascending dragon. And he calls this just being there? In front of him is the great disciple of the Tiger Fang estate, Heo Cheongkong. And now he challenges him to a duel to wash away the shame. Heron said that the token is the special ticket for admission, right? Can it even be stolen? And then Chang Hong replied that it was possible if you defeat the candidate in battle, but the entire sect would fight him after that, but to the end. If he is not an idiot or not strong enough to fight back, it is better not to do such a thing. Heron replied that it was clear and said that Rian fits into that category. Chang Hong asked which one? Idiot or strong enough? Heron laughed and said he wasn't sure. Ruin asked the enemy, a duel? He even thought that nowadays people started calling an attack from the dark a duel. Is this his personal method or is everyone in Tiger Fang Manor like this? Ho asked him if he was an idiot. It was just a greeting, and that's all. Ruin asked, so those murderous attacks were just a greeting for him? Should he greet him like that every time they saw each other on the street? Ho got angry and told him to shut his mouth and take out his weapon. Ruin replied that if he was not stronger than him, nothing would work. Can he say for sure that he was stronger? Ho asked what kind of nonsense he was talking about. Ruin replied that he was definitely slow. He asked if all the sect's hopes were now focused on him. In other words, was he stronger than that gray-haired man and the guy in blue? What was his name? A snowman, I think. And suddenly he remembered and said, the frost sword of Chal Su. Ho replied that laughing at the great teacher, he was crazy. Although he wouldn't compare himself to him, he would punish him in his stead. Let him take out his weapon. Ryan replied that he had already returned from the Tiger Fang Manor in one piece. How was he going to deal with him if he was weaker than that old man? Sure, it's nice to try something impossible at least once in your life, but you shouldn't do stupid things, did he understand? And now he advises him to go back to his room, wash his feet, and go to bed. Ho got very angry and could not stand such disrespect towards him. Ruin said that it would be great if he apologized and compensated him for all the trouble he had caused, for the mental and physical hardships they had endured. Ho immediately went to attack and shouted that his patience had run out. Young said that the elder Chong Kang has a pretty strong sword aura. He thinks it's a guy. Chung Hong replied that with the evil tiger sword and such a strong aura, he was definitely qualified to be the great disciple of the Tiger Fang Manor. He should be stronger than the other experts. And now the final battle of the new students' entrance ceremony has arrived. Ruin didn't even flinch and pretended to be scared. Chung Hong said at that moment that he was a seabird, not a human, and not an expert at all. Heron replied that he had only become friends with him today, but even so, he couldn't help but agree with Chang's words. Chung Hong and Heron decided to comment on the fight. The guy said that as he came back to life from a non-human. He dodged the attack, but the aura of the Elder Huo's sword is still strong. But Ruin didn't lose his head and used a kicking technique, a mind-clearing kick. Heron immediately shouted that he had hit, and Cheng Hong said that he didn't think the attacks would end there. And at that moment, Cheng Hong shouted that Ruin had caught the sword with his bare hands, and immediately squeezed it so tightly that he even felt the crunch. Cheng Hong said that Ruin made a critical hit, and if the last hit was 1 point, then this one is probably 10. The evil tiger sword is the treasure of the Tiger Fang estate. Breaking it is like breaking the Jalen Jade Buddha or the vagabond sect beating post. Heron said that it was all over, and the elder Heo Cheon Kong seemed to be in great shock, and suddenly everyone saw that he had fallen. Chung Hong said that they should root for the non-human, but somehow they don't really want to. Heron responded, and the results of the duel should not be taken lightly. If he were the head of the Tiger Fang estate, what would he do to Heo Chung Kong? Chung Hong replied that if he were in his place, he would beat him half to death. It's simply impossible to sit back after this. The honor of the sect is already tarnished. Even if he melts the sword and makes a new one, it won't change anything. Heron said that it was true. This was the end. But the wounded Ho said that it was not the end. Ruin asked, he didn't want to end it here, right? If so, what should they do? Marpak is too much for him, maybe Jongpak? Or just Chapak? Heron said that it seems that this is not the end. Chang, then what about Chapak, Jongpak, and Marpak that Ruin is talking about? Chung Hong replied that he didn't know. How could he know something inhuman? But he knew for sure that this was bad. It had to be stopped. Ruin said that he thought the way would be weak Chopak. But Chung Hong shouted at him and told him not to kill him. It was his first day. But Ruin didn't listen to them and used dog days punches, dog punching fist, bachapak. But suddenly someone shouted at him to stop. Suddenly the elder came in and asked what was going on here. Ho couldn't even say a word and slowly turned to the master. In the central tower, Yang Head was shouting that they had spent all the money that the entire Marima Alliance had given, just on the entrance ceremony for the new students. This guy was the manager of the first building, the calm, bloody steel sword, Kang Ha-yun. He said that activating the security system and destroying all the mechanisms and traps. Do they even know how much this all costs? Ha-yun shouted that it was almost 1,000 silver coins, especially him, the second-year student Huo from the 8th building. Ho told the manager that everything was correct. Heron thought at that moment that he felt sorry for him. He probably wanted to lose consciousness. But Chung Hong saw that he was a calm, bloody steel sword, a swordsman from the Qingqing sect. As expected from an experienced instructor, the wooden sword is perfect for hurting, but leaving no wounds. Ruin knew in his head that all this was expensive, but to this extent, it was unbelievable. The Academy of Heavenly Warriors is very rich. Ha-yun asked Ho why he, from the 8th building, was making a mess in the first. Was he crazy? His sect should be swimming in gold if he thought he could pay for all this. Ho apologized and said he was truly sorry. Ha-yun told him to stop repeating the same thing and answer the question. He activated not only the mechanisms of the first building, but also the hidden traps in the trap corridor, which were set in case of a large invasion. And how did he figure out how to operate the mechanisms? Who helped him? Ho replied that he did everything himself. No one helped him. Ha-yun asked the boy, does he think the person standing in front of him is an idiot? The mechanisms were set to the deadly 3rd level. If he is not a member of the 4 gods teams, he should not know how to activate them past the 2nd level. And only a few know about the 3rd level. Anything above the 2nd level requires permission from the elders, right? Someone had to tell him how to do all this. And now they are talking about a murder crash within the sect and a security breach. If he continues to remain silent, he will be given 200 penalty points, reported to his sect, and sent to solitary confinement in the law building for 3 months. Ho was scared at this moment from the law building and begged the manager to spare him. Ha-yun asked, is he going to continue to remain silent, even though he already has 2 suspects? It's funny, of course. Are they more terrible than the building of the law and the exception? And then he will think about it today in the building of the law. Let him fear the consequences if he doesn't want to answer tomorrow. Heron knew that he couldn't say anything out of fear, not loyalty. Chung Hong thought the same thing, that there were a lot of problem children in the academy. But Ryun was also surprised that he felt sorry for the penalty points in jail. What about his compensation? Hyun said that the three of them, he'll forgive them this time, since they're technically not at fault. But was it really necessary to break everything? He'll keep an eye on them, so let them be careful from now on. Hyun asked if they were really new students, especially the one in the middle. Chung Hong said yes. He was 25 years old, but he ate the wrong medicine when he was a child. Hyun waved his hand and said that he was sorry, and now they could go to their rooms in peace. Ruin left the room and said that they hadn't even had dinner and hadn't received compensation. Chung Ho replied that at least they wouldn't have to pay for the repairs, so they could drive on. And the first floor will probably be fixed overnight. The floor can be simply laid, but the internal mechanisms will be very difficult to repair. Heron replied that he was even glad that he was not thrown out on the first day. And then Ruin said that this was his room, and she wished the boys a good night. Heron replied that they had settled next to the old man, but he seemed further away. Entering the room, Ruin was very surprised that it was so clean. And suddenly in front of him sat Hui, who had done all this. Entering the room, Ryun introduced himself and said he was glad to meet him. The boy bowed and replied that his name was Moen Hui of the Moen family. Ryun looked and said that he felt stuffy. Hui asked him what he was talking about. The guy answered, "Isn't it hard for him to speak so formally?" They are the same age and decided to talk without formalities. Hui said that he understood what he was saying, but he wanted to maintain his manners in front of someone he had just met. And it's not like he looks down on him, right? Ruin said that he asked him to speak a little more friendly because he wouldn't mind getting closer to him. Hui replied that he understood, but personally he preferred to speak like this. It was more comfortable for him. Ruin knew that this guy was a suffocator. He was also boring. He was going to pass out from his suffocation. Hui said they had one thing to decide. Which bed would he choose? He could only unpack his things once they had agreed, so he waited for him. Ruin asked what difference it made if they looked the same, and he really waited for him because of that? Hui said it was necessary. Let him take a closer look. One by the window, the other by the closet. The angle and direction of the light, as well as the distance from the door to the bed, are also different. Ruin asked him which side he wanted. Hui replied that it was hard for him to choose, but let him remember that he could open the windows and use the closet often. Ruin said that he would choose the one closer to the window then, and he knew that Hui was one of those people who was restless. It was better to open the window than to have constant rustling in the closet. Hui said he understood everything. An hour later, Ryun asked the guy why he was doing this. For what reason? Hui asked him in response, "What is he talking about?" Ruin replied that he was asking why he was so meticulous in laying everything out. He was just putting things away. Not only did he twist everything into perfect squares, he also sorted them by color. Hui replied that it was just a habit. No need to worry. Ruin didn't believe in such a thing, said that it was just a habit, and decided that he would also arrange everything according to his own method. Rule number 1, everything expensive should be where no one can get it. Rule number 2, what is used often should be nearby. Here are the rules for storing Mo and Hui's things. Rule number 1, everything should be perfectly packed. The best shape for clothes is a square. All sides should be equal. Rule 2, everything should be clean and hygienic. Not a speck of dust should be allowed. Ruin looked and thought, isn't this a waste of effort? It's too meticulous for it to just be a matter of organizing and cleaning. After that, Ryun asked the guy if he was done. Hui replied that he still needed to work on the little things. But that was enough for today. Ruin thought about the little things he was using. There wasn't even anything left to clean up here. This guy is a pure madman. No one has ever amazed him like that except for that damned old man. At this time, the master said that if you leave a room empty for a long time, negative energy will accumulate inside the house. This is the damn bastard's room, but tonight he will sleep here. But I imagined Ruin saying that this was his room. Why would he be allowed to sleep in it? Even if the building was his, isn't that too much? After that, the teacher simply turned around and walked out of the student's room. But he started shouting that it was unfair, and he started shouting that he was a thief. The teacher said he must have trouble sleeping after he dumped him like that. Serves him right. But everything was different, and Ruin enjoyed these moments in the city, outside of his master's territory. Chung Hong was watching his friend at this time. The guy asked Heron, so everyone in the Great Swordberg clan uses 2 swords? Surprisingly, Heron replied that he was flattered to hear such a thing from a disciple of the Huashan sect. Wasn't she famous for her sword techniques? Like the plum blossom technique. But Chung Hong saw that this wall was a little thinner, as he had asked, and the angle of this hole made it easy to see everything. And probably this guy is probably an idiot from the Huashan sect. Looks like those guys also fudge the room numbers. And that's good, of course. It was tough with those two, of course, but overall, everything went smoothly today. But Ho was behind bars at the time and was very angry with Ryun, and he understood that this was not the end. Not the end. The elders said the next day that Ho Chung-kang's group had failed. It seemed he had been thrown into the law building for breaking all those expensive machines. The leader asked in surprise, really? They were more stupid than he thought. Maybe the children of the 8 great clans were stupid too. The elders said that no matter what the result, it would soon be their turn. That was good. Would their gathering of talents from the 9 great sects really have to deal with this scoundrel to restore the honor of the Huanshinya sect and the Diankang sect? The leader said it was true. He heard he joined this year. Probably came first in the exams. He's probably in the same room as the bastard. Does that change anything? The elder replied that he was not at all. He behaved like a proud crane and was hard to get along with. Although he was a talent from the Moen family, it would take the 8 great clans some time to drag him over. And he's unlikely to get close to this bastard. But the next morning, Chang Hong came to Ryuena and said that it was strange to see him in the room for the best students. Heron also said that the room looked very clean and shiny. Ruin asked what he should say. He got first place for how amazing he was. They can stand in the hallway if they don't want to go in. Chun Hong nudged the boy and told him to move away so he could see something. He wanted to see how this room was different from the others. Heron said he was interested too, and his neighbor was here too. Could he come in? He wanted to meet him. Heron said that this is young master Yun Junho. He is from Huashan sect. Yun asked, what do you mean, young master? This is embarrassing. The guy showed himself and said that his name was Yun Junho, and he was from the Haoshan sect, and let them forgive him for coming without warning. Ruin asked in surprise, with that Huashan, he knows their people, and I'm glad to meet him. Yun said he was glad too, and asked him to take care of him. Ruin said sure. Let him relax and dust off his clothes before coming in. Heron asked him, are they different? Chung Hong said that why is the person who is lying on the ground calmly, pretending that cleanliness is important to him? This room is so good. Ruin replied that they should go in as they were, but he would not be responsible for what would happen here. Did they understand? And then let them not say that he did not warn them. Let them come in. Heron asked the old man if there was something inside, like a mechanism that reacts to dust. Chung Hong replied that he wasn't sure. Would the academy put something like that in the bedroom? But if he warned them after going through all those traps, Heron said that they needed to shake the dust off their clothes. Chung Hong said that was right, and they immediately started shaking. Chung Hong asked Yun to shake off his back just in case. Heryong said that he shook off the dust from Yun and Chung Ho from him. Ruin decided to introduce himself and told Hui that this was an uncle who claimed to be 25 and a new friend from the Huashan sect. Heron also decided to introduce himself and said that he was glad to meet you. Chung Hong also replied that he was 25 and not an old man, he was a new student. Hui also introduced himself and said that he apologized for the outfit. He was a little busy. Ruin told him to continue cleaning. They'll just stay away from his side, okay? And those 3 have already dusted themselves off. No need to worry. Heron asked in surprise, cleaning? Maybe they should come later then. Chung Hong asked. Maybe he could help him clean. Ruin asked if he really thought this room needed cleaning. The boys immediately looked around and saw that everything was clean. Ruin said that if this is a dirty room, then what does a clean room even look like? Heron asked. So yesterday's chaos was because he beat up 4 students with badges? Chung Hong told him that he beat up 5 people, including the guy from the Tiger Fang estate, and for that he was given a first place instead of being kicked out. What has the academy become? Ruin replied that this couldn't be. He just waved his arms and legs a couple of times. Everything was according to the rules. Chung Hong said it didn't matter. They were on their radar now. Why should he suffer like that at his young age of 25? Heron asked if he had defeated one of the Huashan sect disciples during the test. Ruin replied that he had, which was why he said he knew people from there. What was his name? He had a strange name. Heron asked his man, didn't he also act according to the token? The Huashan sect had two tokens? Chung Hong said that this was not the main problem. The important thing was that their new friend was not the enemy of the person in front of them. Ruin asked, so he wants to take revenge on him? Let him just say where and when he wants to do it. Better after breakfast. Yun asked, what do you mean take revenge? He has no such plans. If his elder was defeated with one blow, then the same will happen to him. And if he fights young Master Ruin, it will only further disgrace his sect. And he doesn't think that the result of a fair fight is worth avenging. Ruin noticed that this guy was smart. Yun asked the guy why he was staring at him like that. Chung Hong felt that something bad had happened to him in the Huashan sect. And from what he can see, although he is not as strong as those two monsters, he still has more ki than the rest of the bastards from Huashan. Why is he so timid? He needs to figure it out. Yun said that since he is a disciple of the Huashan sect, does he really need to fight him? If so, at any time that is convenient for him. Heron told the boy that from what he knew, the title of young master didn't suit Ryuan at all, and he wasn't mean enough to bully someone like him. If he didn't want to fight, no one was forcing him to. Ruin asked, who is more suited to the title of young master? Heron asked the boy. He heard, right? Just let him behave normally with him and without unnecessary formalities. And indeed, Chan is the eldest, and therefore it is possible to be formal with him. Yun answered that he understood. Chung Hong was surprised and asked, what do you mean the eldest? Maybe his name is just Chan. Chung Hong said that there is not even that big of an age difference. If she wants, she can talk to him calmly. Ryun asked, does he think he wants him? At best, he will call him Brother Chang. He does not want to address him as a peer. It seems to him that there is a 20-year difference between them. Ruin asked when they could go to the canteen. Heron replied that it opened at the hour of the dragon, so they would go soon. But suddenly Ruin asked the boy why he was looking at the cleaning maniac. Yun replied that he was just wondering if young Master Moen would go with them. And call the famous divine sword of 7 cuts Moen Hui a lunatic. Even though he cleans up diligently, he is still a role model for many students their age. Call him by his name. Ryuan asked in surprise, a role model? That crazy one? Heron answered that it was true. He was one of the contenders for the title of the strongest expert under the heavens. Heron said that many people worship him, so be careful with your words. If he doesn't keep his mouth shut, he's going to experience something worse than what he got on the test. Does he understand? Ruin asked in surprise, really? Even if he's handsome and seems strong and smart, is that enough to become a role model? Let him just look at it. Cleaning his cleaning tools? Does he even know why? So he can clean them again, and then clean them again. Chung Hong told him to be quiet. Even if it was a male dorm, he never knew where the eyes might be, and the associations of the 7 cuts were gone. Ruin asked, what kind of association? Chung Hong asked, what, he doesn't know about her? They are a group of ladies who worship the divine sword of 7 cuts. Their methods are terrible, and their sphere of influence is huge. Heron told Chan to look at his reaction. Even he is afraid of them. But he understands him. Chuan asked in surprise, what did they do? Yun said that young Master Moen seemed to be in shock, so he would tell him using voice transmission technique. They used to record everything he did from waking up to sleeping. They also stole things he touched and clothes he wore. There were rumors that they cut off the tail of the horse he rode and made a brush out of it. Ruin asked why they were a group of thieves. Wasn't he from the Moen clan? And they allowed this to happen? Yun replied that yes, it should be impossible to pull off, but his twisted love and obsession were miracles. They paid a known assassin to train, infiltrate the house, and contact or even threaten the Moen clan servants. Chun Hong told the boy that he didn't know what Junho said to him, but asked him to be careful. One of the young talents said something bad about him at the hotel and lost his arm. Heron asked, is it that bad? Ruin replied, aren't they a criminal organization then? There isn't an acolyte of the 7 Slices Association among them, right? Yun said that although it was an honor to meet the divine sword of 7 cuts, it was not much, but he only admired his martial arts skills. Chung Hong asked who he thought he was. He hated being part of organizations. Heron replied that he had nothing to do with it either. In fact, he could call him a rival. Yun told Heron to be careful. The association can hear him. Chung Hong replied that although he was right, considering his status and ability to perfectly create a sword barrier, it seems he is a suitable opponent for him. If it weren't for the incident at the Heavenly Demon Pavilion, maybe a similar group would have appeared for him, and it would be called something like the Ren Love Association. Ruin said that's good then. That means there are none of them. Then no one likes Mon Hui here, so they can go eat together. But Yun said that he said it was an honor to meet him. Heron replied that if he said that, he might think that they really didn't like him. Chung Hong asked if it was okay to invite someone to dinner like that. Who would go with him if they heard that? But suddenly Hui used his powers and got closer to them. Ruin said if they see, he agrees to go with them. At this time on the second floor of the central tower of Yang, in the building of Harmony, the guy said he was disappointed that the only choice was the food of the heavenly warriors, but for free it was prepared pretty well. Ruin said he especially likes this dinner plate. You can put everything on it at once, and there's not much washing up to do. And they are made of strong steel, and it seems that the Academy of Heavenly Warriors is a good place to learn something here. Chung Hong said that yes, it really is strong, since it can withstand everything he threw at it. Even street vagrants behave more decently. Ruin asked, what do you mean? Ren Ren gained the same amount for himself. Doesn't understand why they always bother him? They, the young ones, have a wolfish appetite. Chung Hong replied, what nonsense. Let him see, it should be about the same as his and his neighbors. And since the elders eat the least, Jun Ho must be the greatest master. Yun laughed and replied that he just felt unwell today. Suddenly, a guy came up to them and asked if he wasn't seeing things. How did the main disgrace end up here? The guy asked how such a dumbass got into Cheon Muhakwan. Was he sucking up to Sub again? The girl said most likely. Otherwise, how did he manage to get the token? Worthless trash. Yun lowered his head and replied that nothing like that happened. He tried to tell them, but he was too nervous to do so. But suddenly the guy looked and said that he was not going to listen to this anymore, and asked the guys where they came from. Chung Hong introduced himself and said that he was 25 years old, a freshman. The guy thought, is he kidding? What 25? The girl said her name was Juna Yun, a second-year student from Hwasun, and next to him was John Lee Hak, a third-year student from the same clan. Lee Hak said that this idiot was hanging around the Cheonmahakwan area for reasons unknown to them. That's why he was asking how he ended up here. Is there something wrong? Chung Hong replied that he simply did not understand how one could swear so freely and even attack a comrade. And he thinks that the elder treated Jun Ho with special love and therefore gave him the opportunity to get into this school despite his lack of talent. Of course he couldn't believe it. When did Hwasun get so wild? He hadn't been told about it. These two, judging by their appearance, were worse in skill than the pale boy, but for some reason they didn't respect him. Lee Hak replied that everything was correct. This vile good-for-nothing was constantly visiting the great Sab, and out of love for the good-for-nothing, he gave him a token. Shame and disgrace. Nyan also said that this year Jae Sub-so was supposed to get the endless victory, but because of him, Sony still gave in and fished out the item from his distant relatives from the Danley clan. But then someone beat him up really badly. Judging by the fact that they're sitting here having breakfast now, she's sure the disgraceful guy ordered their friend on purpose. Yun stood up and said no, and asked what they were talking about, and Ryu Yeon won in a fair fight. Lee Hak told him to shut up and call him a mean dog. He said whether it was a fair fight or not, what difference did it make? How dare he sit at the same table with the man who got Jae Sub kicked? He thinks that's okay? Heron asked, what's wrong? Does he mean that every time after a defeat, Hwasun students should not admit their helplessness, but on the contrary should continue to treat the winner with hostility? Although some of them can't even come to terms with their own Sabu's decision, what's there to talk about? Students don't know how to respect their elders and admit their mistakes. I wonder what their clan is based on. Lee Hak got angry and asked how he dared to insult them. It was obvious that he was no better than the others. Where was his respectful attitude towards the seniors? Chung Hong thought about it and said that it turns out that because of respect, they can't express their dissatisfaction to their elder's face, and that's why they insult him in his absence. Lee Hak said what he wanted to say. Nayeon also asked, when did they insult the great Sabu? Chung Hong asked, so it wasn't an insult? Their senior Grand Master of the Plum Blossom Sword, Mr. Yu Huan Quan, the strongest, most outstanding leader in the last 5 or 10 years. And they claim that such a powerful figure in all respects would tolerate sycophancy? Isn't such talk a disgrace to honor? Chunan told him that if he didn't know anything, he should shut up. As if there was no reason for that? Lee Hak said that he was such a disgrace. He didn't know a single plum blossom technique, and yet he dared to come to this school. Yoon got angry and said in response that he was an unworthy, pathetic mongrel. And if he still had a drop of conscience, he should pack his things and leave immediately, and never show up in his sight again. Ruin asked Ren why he had to know them, and Heron replied that they were plum blossoms. The techniques of this martial art are personified by the crawling petals of a wild plum. This is the signature martial art of the Hwasun clan, and is ranked among the 12 most powerful martial arts in all of China. It consists of 36 sections, 72 movements, and 864 combinations that include these movements. Therefore, it is practically impossible to learn them all. So not a single disciple of the clan has yet mastered this technique completely and fully. Moreover, they do not take into account the countless different branches of the teaching. Heron said that, simply put, no student is given the opportunity to learn any other arts. Only the ignorant and the rogue follow any other path. So his question is completely out of place. Ruin replied that unpredictability was his middle name. He asked Ren why he needed so much information about other clans, and in his opinion, the less you know, the better you sleep. Heron asked, does he think so? But he really knows a lot. Chang Hong thought, what a smart guy, as if he revealed a secret, and any child knows about this. And why then is the fool so slow-witted? What planet is he from? Ruin said that Yun wasn't quite ready to enroll yet, and that was a problem. But still, who gave them permission to interfere and spoil someone else's meal with their presence? Heron replied that he agreed too. It was their internal affair. Perhaps they should be taught a lesson. Lee Hawk asked, and why is he silent? Neon asked, he has nothing to say. According to him, everything will go unpunished as usual? Ruin asked, why get up from your seat? You can do that, Heron asked with surprise. Really? Ruin thought about how smart the people at Chomohakwan were. They made steel utensils for just such occasions. Yun told his friends that there was an order from the elder Sabu. He couldn't resist. Lee Hawk replied that this was real and asked the guy if he decided to shift the responsibility to Sabu. Ruin started looking at the plates and saw that the dishes were solid and the corners were obtuse. Chung Hong immediately told Heron that he didn't know what this crazy guy was planning, but he had to hold him tight. Chung Hong realized that he was going to make a mess again. Ryuing took the dishes and knew that it was impossible to kill like that. Well, that was just right. And then Heron told him to stop. Hui stood up and said that they were seniors. Aren't you ashamed to humiliate your junior in front of such a crowd? Nyan asked in surprise. The seventh divine sword Moen He? And it turns out that it is none of his business, Lee Hawk asked. And why did he think that they were humiliating him? Let him not interfere where he is not wanted. Hui said that Yun was his friend. However, he personally doesn't like being bothered. Whoever they are, he doesn't think they have the right to cause inconvenience to other people. And if they think he acted dishonestly, let them turn to the leadership of Chonmu Hakwan or to their senior. Now he asked them to leave him alone. Lee Hawk resigned himself and said that so be it, and they would cross paths again from today onwards. Let him be more careful. Heron asked Ruin what was wrong again. Was he still digesting what had happened? Ruin replied that it was kind of a shame. He wanted to paint the dishes red, but it didn't work out. It was a shame, but oh well. He was sure that another opportunity would come his way. Chang'ung said he understood. Next time, let him warn. He had to prepare in time. Yun apologized and said it was all because of him, even to Mr. Moan. Heron said that he was not guilty of anything. Those scoundrels created a commotion, and he really wanted to ask Yun why he did not have the famous Hwasun techniques. Yun started laughing, and he is allergic to plum blossoms. They make him sneeze all the time, his whole body gets covered in rashes, and sometimes he even faints. Just as he starts training, petals appear around him, a smell, and suddenly he stops. The guys ask, what next? And then he stops at the stage of the fragrant sword, and the guys understand all this perfectly. The elder told the chief that John Lee Hak and Shugayon had crossed paths with them, and unfortunately the meeting was not a pleasant one. The leader replied that they had agreed to just observe for now. And what happened to Mu Yan? He didn't think he had given them a careless order. The elder replied that of course not. That's how it happened. An unplanned meeting caused a mistake, and the defeat of the community of 9 would only give a reason to include it in the community of 8 great clans, or worse, into more terrible hands. But this time it all happened by accident. John Lee Hack saw a student from his clan and decided to punish him. but suddenly an unexpected guest appeared nearby. Of course, it's surprising, but it was said that they all ate at the same table. Moen Hee, Bi Ryuan, as well as Cha Hyun and Heron. The elder said that he had told him about Chung Hong. These two are the same ones he has been going with since the first day of school. I had to make some inquiries, but in the end, nothing worthwhile was found. The guy said that Mo Young-hui sat at the same table with such scum, although it's quite possible. After all, he shares a room with Bi-ruin. And who is this disciple from the Hwasun clan? The elder replied that his name was Yun Jun-ho. He settled down with Heron. It seems that is why they became friends. And if we repeat the words of Hak and Gayon verbatim, he is a disgrace and a complete loser. The guy replied, "What a horror. Where have you ever seen someone speak disparagingly of their comrade? And now people like this are called the future of the white sect?" The elder replied that he had told them the same thing. And they responded, "How can one call oneself a student of Hwasun if he does not know how to use a single plum blossom technique?" The boy asked. "A student of the Hwasun clan entered Cheonmuhakwan without even knowing the basic techniques? Is he joking?" The elder replied that, unfortunately, it was true. When he first heard it, he couldn't even believe his ears. The boy replied that then it was clear why they were arguing so much. But how then? The elder replied that apparently the great master had given him the token of infinite victory. In other words, despite his lack of ability, luck is clearly on his side. In the exam, 4 good fighters failed because of Bai-ruin, and so one of them was a disciple of the Hwasun clan. Perhaps that was why Cheonmuhakwan decided to be lenient towards them. The guy replied that it turned out that because of this guy, even such people were lucky to get there, and now he would have to act as decisively as possible. At this time in the room, Ryun was asking what it was. A fragrant sword? Yun replied that it was the first time he heard it, so he didn't understand what it was about. Heron replied that this was a very high level of mastery of the plum blossom sword art. Didn't he know? Chung Hong said that information about him was kept a closely guarded secret. Yun replied that it seemed like it, but he didn't understand it. Chung Hong said that it was okay, it was a common practice. It was just confusing. And by the way, Heron is well informed about a lot of things. Just looking at him, you wouldn't say that this information isn't publicly available. He thought that meant the prince had been given access to the archives. Now even he considered secret data something ordinary. Heron said that Sabu just told him, so he thought that everyone knew about it. And he heard very little, about the appearance of plum aroma, for example. Ryuan asked in surprise, "Plum aroma?" Chung Hong said that it is true. More precisely, it happens over a short period of time. At the moment when a person reaches maximum concentration, the internal energy is knocked down. And it goes without saying that only a few people are familiar with it at all. And they say that in the last 100 years, only 5 people have managed to grow so high. Heron said that he would see what the old man had sniffed more than him. Chung Hong replied that Sabu had told him the same. There were many scholars in their Yuanmun clan. Ruin asked in surprise, "Huh? That's interesting, of course. And it turns out that the guy can be used as an air freshener? For example, after a barbecue, make him swing a sword." Yun said that he thought it was a bad idea. Chung Hong replied that the person sitting before him was the most gifted person in the Hwasun clan. People like him are extremely rare. Yun replied that no, it was all wrong. This was some kind of misunderstanding. And it turned out that he was not even able to repeat the techniques that his ancestors had left him as a legacy. Heron asked, "He will be 20 this year, won't he? So he has reached an incredible level at such an early age?" Amazing. Let him not be afraid. A solution can always be found. Chen Hong said that, moreover, to say that he is simply gifted is to say nothing. And what is the secret? How did he manage to do it? Yun replied that there was one case. On the fire mountain where they usually train, there are a lot of plum saplings. So the older he got, the more severe his allergies were. The students asked him how he was going to continue to get along with them. The plum blossoms are pride and joy. If he can't get along with them, he has no place in the Hwasun clan. But the master embraced him and said that he had never seen such nonsense before. It was hard to live side by side with plum blossoms. That's how it was. Should he throw the thief out? Since when had such nonsense become so important? The master said to try to answer. What is the spirit of the Hwasun clan, and what do the petals surrounding them mean? Yun replied that both are filled with fragile humility. They all have to put up with caustic adversity and care for the world with a pure soul, and plum blossoms are a symbol of purity. The master said that it was excellent, and asked if he probably didn't like these flowers, since they were torturing him like that. Yun replied that he wouldn't say that at all. But the aroma really does give you goosebumps, and yet, they are ordinary flowers. What can you expect from them? And they all cause a lot of inconvenience, but their beauty outshines everything. The master began to laugh and ask, is he only talking about flowers? Let him see how he adores the main charm and the fiery mountain more than any of them. And with great difficulty, he tries to learn to survive the hardships that these flowers bring into his life. He tries to be imbued with the true teaching. So who should kick whom out? And if they were in his place and had lived for so many years in the same conditions, would they be able to love the surrounding nature just as passionately? However, the master said that there is no need to torture yourself. After all, they are ordinary flowers. Therefore, every year in the spring, go to the neighboring mountain to train. There are not many trees there, so he thinks it will be easier. Yun said that since then, in March, he had been constantly away from home, practicing on his own. The plums grew less often here, but there were still many of them. And fortunately, there were many deep caves there, and it was easier for him to climb into one of them and train there. Sometimes he found traces of other guys training inside, and once he accidentally entered some strange place. As usual, I began to meditate and began to hone new techniques. But after one careless swing of the sword, the wall collapsed. And behind it, he discovered a new cave. So having walked along the tunnel to the end, a strange picture appeared before him. At that moment, goosebumps ran across his body, as if the secret of a genuine martial art seemed to lift the breath of the cave wind. The walls were completely covered with blade marks. He was unable to determine the origin of this miracle, but it seemed to be a combination of walking and sword control techniques. And there on the wall was written the 7 blades of plum. The 7 blades of plum had some similarity with the plum blossom, but the approach to studying them was fundamentally different. And so, having recovered from the shock, he began to study the tracks. Day and night he trained, bringing thirst, hunger, and sleep, repeating every step left on the cracked floor of the great hall. And one day the fateful hour came. Suddenly, out of nowhere, plum blossoms appeared in the air. That's when he realized that his happy days were over. And suddenly consciousness left him. And when he came to with any attempt to show such techniques as plum blossoms or 7 blades, he began to be tormented by a tart, irritating smell. And so he left the cave to report what had happened to the teacher, and it immediately collapsed to the ground. So no one believed his delirious stories later. Heron said that it turns out that no one else in the world knows the technique he knew. Surprising. Chung Hong said that he hoped the elder believed him without question. Although he could not show it, but he could clarify it in words, he thinks it was possible. He was simply obliged to recognize what was what. Yun replied that whenever he tried to remember his walking technique or sword control, a mysterious scent would instantly appear in some way known only to God. Chung Hong asked if he was going to faint next. Yun replied that he was. That's why the master sent him here. He told him to find out the answer in Shonmohakwan by any means necessary. Heron said that the road ahead would be difficult. I wish I could give some advice after all. You have to move forward somehow. Ruin said that they would have to act radically. They would change the person beyond recognition. Yun asked, what kind of person? Heron asked Ryun if it was too cruel. Chung Hong asked if he was being serious. The guy had his whole life ahead of him. Did he want to ruin it? Ruin replied that since the body reacts to the flowers, it means that this miracle needs to be stopped somehow. According to him, this is not the most effective method, or do they have better options? If the problem is not solved, all sorts of scoundrels will constantly torment him. Who knows? Maybe they'll even cover all the paths that Yun will walk through school with plum petals. Heron said that they were bad people. They could do something like that. Chang'an replied that, frankly speaking, there were few sensible thoughts, and there was no desire to leave his comrade to his fate. Heron thought about it and said that he was in then. Chung Hong replied that he also thought the risk was worth it. Yun heard and thanked them for taking care of him. Chung Hong said that after analyzing Yun's condition, he came to the conclusion that it was not just hypersensitivity that was involved, but a serious allergy. Some substances that most people don't have any problems with cause breathing difficulties in some. In other words, they kill these people. Ruin told him to take this poison. They will start with a small dose and gradually increase it. Chung Hong said that if this method worked, he would have recovered at home with age. But since nothing happened, it follows that the issue cannot be resolved this way. Moreover, it seems that the reason is not in the mental state. But most likely, in fact, they will go this way, and on the contrary, they will only cause harm, and you never know, they will be sent to the next world. Heron asked, then why not initiate a homemade evolution using medicinal concoctions? Chung Hong asked, what is the use of various medicinal substances, changing the proportions, in an attempt to influence the physical properties of the body? Heron said that it was true, but unfortunately, there could be serious side effects. Chung Hong said that you can take a painkiller. But the problem is that they are unlikely to have enough knowledge, and he doubts that they will be able to fully see the course of events. Although, if they do not rush, unforeseen troubles can be avoided. However, if he suddenly loses his taste, goes blind, or even stops moving his arms and legs, Yun was scared and replied that this was serious. Heron told him not to worry. There could be trouble if they experimented, but if you hired real professionals, you wouldn't have to worry about safety. Chung Hong said that it would be better to turn to experts in complex poisons, or better yet, to Jiangshi summoners. These cool shamans know better than any professor how this or that drug works. Yun said that he hoped that such gifted people would not be found in their area, and he really thought it was scary. Heron said he agreed it would be hard to find the first ones, and the vampire creators would be even harder. However, in Cheonmahakwan, guys from all over the area gather. So there must be many disciples from the Dan clan and other healers? Chung Hong answered that there definitely are, and you will even be able to meet the creators of death. Heron asked, the ones who give souls to the dead? Ruin was surprised and replied that he was looking forward to the experiment. Heron said, how amazing it is. But aren't such obscenities forbidden in the white sect? Shanhong replied that, to tell the truth, access to this knowledge had been open for a long time. There are simply clans that have been given orders to repel demons, and if one of the dark sects is up to no good, it's best not to disturb them. The advisor's a good one. It will probably work out. The only thing is that they usually conduct their research with corpses. Rune said that Yun was full of life, for sure. Too bad the dream was shattered. Never saw a demon. Heron replied that there was nothing to be done. And then there was poison. Yun said no, he would never forget their kindness. But in his opinion, this was clearly too much. Heron started laughing and asked what he was afraid of. Of course he agreed with him. The process was fraught with risk. But still, it was enough to find a more or less competent healer, and the question would settle itself. The risk was minimal, and it was necessary to try. Chung Hong said that if he was still unsure and thought no one would dare to work with him, he could rest easy. Only a lunatic would refuse to conduct a couple of intricate experiments on such a young calf. He was sure they would quickly dig up some herbalists who were passionate about their work. Yun said he was begging them to find another way, one that was safe and sensible. Heron replied that if he didn't want it, it was a pity, but if it was so, there was no trial. Chung Hong said that it was safe and not contrary to common sense, but he doubted that such a thing existed. Ruin said that if he doesn't like body manipulation, should he get rid of the allergy at all? Leave it and do something else. Isn't that the solution? Heron asked, something else? Chung Hong asked the guy, what is he up to again? Let him lay it out. Ruin replied that he should try to free himself from the harmful aroma. Although this thing of theirs exudes an aura of greatness, in essence it is only the energy emanating from the sword, and it is clear that there is no point in wasting it. The fact that the sword is fragrant does not increase the force of the blow, and it is clear that this stage is nothing more than a step preceding the level of absolute mastery in sword control. And if you overcome it, the obsessive smell will immediately evaporate without a trace. That is, their patient will become stronger and free from torment. And how do they like this plan? Heron asked, is he suggesting to push him higher? Which is not bad, but due to the mental trauma, Yun can't even hold a sword, so it's not in his destiny to carry out his plan yet. Chung Hong said he would agree. There is no way such a method can be accepted in life. He can't implement a single technique. Ruin said that there is nothing applicable, and since a solution has been found, he will be responsible for its implementation. His friends from the clan have excellent know-how on this matter. Heron said he didn't know what exactly was going on, but he looked confident, good and worth trusting. Chung Hong asked in surprise, "No, Hai. This is the first time he's heard such a concept. It's alarming. Where did he even come from?" Ruin replied that he does not disclose personal information. Let them just understand that his specialty is to turn the impossible into possible. The teacher asked Master He why he was shaking so much. Was he unwell? He replied that no, he just suddenly felt goosebumps. He felt that something bad was about to happen. Maybe it was because of this situation. He said he didn't understand the logic. Chol Su replied that such a name was against the rules of Cheon Muhakwan. The answer is final. Did they think he would agree to call the object Sim in such a wild way? It's embarrassing to say that phrase out loud. He asked in surprise, is it embarrassing to say? A passionate man must engage in self-improvement. And that's right. A hot-blooded man must be strong, strong and strong again. That's what self-improvement was invented for. That's the meaning he showed the world, what he doesn't like. Chul Su said that such phrases can be scratched on the wall of their own house. They have no. They are still a vagabond. He replied that he was a bastard and knew why. Okay, then we need to measure our strength here and now, you decrepit snowman. The teacher told them to calm down. He doesn't understand. He's a very calm person. So why does he immediately lose his temper when he sees Mr. Kwan? Master Kwan does not yet fully understand the subtleties of teaching. Let them agree that it is forgivable for him not to know all the details. The teacher turned to He and said that this phrase was truly wonderful and full of deep meaning, but unfortunately it was not suitable as a title for a lecture. He asked him to explain what was wrong. Why? The teacher replied that when students choose a subject, they pay attention first of all to its name and the names of the teachers. It is necessary to indicate the type of martial art being studied, the weapons that will be used, whether it is theory or practice, the required level of skill. After all, not only male students study at Cheonmohakwan, but female students as well. They themselves understand what kind of indignation will arise among the girls at the sight of such a phrase. He replied that if that was the reason, he would agree. He should have said so right away. Otherwise, how could he not be angry when they change everything without asking? And in that case, he offers the following: combat power and speed, blade control technique, high level. The teacher laughed and replied that it was amazing. The great master gave a very appropriate answer. That's how he knew. It's not that hard, actually. He's already published a list of items with that name. And don't let them thank you. Chul Su took out a paper and said, here is combat power and speed, blade control technique. Yi He noticed that this snowman even decided to steal his thoughts. What a dirty trick. The teacher said that it turns out that the issue is settled. They said that they have special requirements for the process. He answered that it is true that there is one. Hidi said that he asked not to recruit first-year students for his subject. Arguments like yes, he is responsible and strong, and therefore can take part are not accepted. No first-year students. Chal Su asked, is that so? The teacher said, for the sake of fairness, the kids are allowed to choose higher category subjects from the second half of the year. Could he explain what the requirement is based on? He replied that he simply did not want to. And if they did not fulfill the condition, God knows he would be sick for a full semester. And let them not expect righteous teaching from him. Ruin was given a book, and he asked what he needed this thick book for? As a pillow or something? Chakun said that it was a good idea. It would also work as a sleeping pill, but it is still needed for the most accurate selection of accounting disciplines. He recommends quickly scrolling through and choosing the ones that interest you. Officially, 4 days are allotted for everything. But in reality, the recruitment for interesting subjects closes in the first 2 hours. Let him look around. Does he see how tense the situation is? Ruin replied. Is there something he needs to read this crap from cover to cover? At least 2 points on each. Heron told him that the contents of each were written out for him at the beginning. The 7 compulsory subjects were to be collected later. They were all roughly the same. He advised him to start with the 5 that were optional. Yun also opened the book and said how many interesting things there were. Hui was also with them at that time and said that he would go and apply. Good luck to everyone. Chun Hong was surprised and asked, already? And of course he hopes that he will be able to do exactly what he will mark. Runes said at this time that he couldn't believe it. The mesophobe had already read it. Chung Hong replied that it was unlikely. There are more than 300 different directions that are dangerous here. Rather, he will look at the short description. Multiples of this are 150, and in more detail, already 200. Heron looked and replied that the task was not pleasant, and there was so much here. Has it ever happened that a course began individually when no one else deigned to join? Chung Hong said that unfortunately, if there are not three, the program will be immediately closed. Therefore, experienced teachers only recruit 3 or 4 groups. Ruin told them to listen. Martial arts are all one big whole after all. Where did so many branches come from anyway? Chung Hong replied that no matter how angry he was, he needed to humbly accept this fact and not look for problems on his head. And Yun didn't seem to need help. And let them say that 2 would give preference, he would quickly pick them out. Chung Hong thought that he would try to show and point out the same ones. It would be easier to follow, and at his age. But suddenly someone fell. Everyone was surprised, and Chung Hong said that it seemed like they were taking sword control classes there. Surely some cool teacher would be teaching it. Chung Hong came up and asked if the man could tell me why people were rushing so quickly to that particular stand. Had something so interesting really appeared? The boy asked back, didn't he know? This year one of the courses will be presented by the god of the volcanic sword. Now everyone is flocking there, hoping to sign up for his lectures. The boy asked if he could see. Here is another place where students are crowding. There they are trying to enroll in their great master. Of course, it's no wonder. There's a lot of excitement about him every year. But in his opinion, this time there will be more kids with the new teacher. Yun said in surprise, Frostblade is one of the top 5 gene masters in the entire Celestial Empire, and Lord Flame is one of the top 5 Dao Blade masters. Is it really possible to listen to their lectures here? Heron said that it was great, and suggested that they sign up too. The guy replied that it was a pity, of course, to disappoint, but newcomers were not allowed now. The guys were surprised and asked why. The guy answered that it was the custom, there are certain requirements. For example, if the note states that the level is high, students who are not lower than the 3rd year, or those who have excellent grades can apply. Besides, when there is such confusion, the recording is finished in half an hour, and the best ones are selected through simple tests. And usually only their great master put forward different conditions, but it turned out that the fiery one asked to exclude first-year students altogether. So everyone thinks that he will teach some miraculous techniques. Ruin thought that this was a huge commotion, as if they had found something wonderful about his student, and he was also old. And what was he going to show in class? Was it really a fire show? Or maybe everyone was taken in by the beautiful name? The guy said that they would, in principle, be able to get to the Frostblade later. The main thing is to try. If they work hard, luck will smile on them in the next half year. Chung Hong looked at Ruin and said that he could see that the boy was in a bad mood. Was he upset that he wouldn't be able to enroll with the vaunted teachers? Ruin replied that no, not at all under any circumstances. He thought that the last thing he needed was his own slave to study. Nonsense. Ruin said he would rather choose more productive subjects than ones that might lower his social status or bruise his ego. Chung Hong asked, social status? And what does ego have to do with it? And the guy, did you understand anything? Heron answered that no, it seems he doesn't like it. Chung Hong asked him which ones he thought were more useful. He wanted to hear something specific. Ruin replied that he was already so invulnerable that he didn't need anything. But if he had to choose, he'd better learn how to control sounds. His lousy teacher knows notes, but he can't control or manipulate sound waves. And he thinks this is a great option. Yun was surprised and said that learning to control sounds was amazing. Heron was also surprised and said that Ruin was brave to speak like that about his master. Chung Hong said that it was nothing compared to that. Rather, it was ill-mannered. Besides, it was an incredibly subtle science that required grace, and also perfection in knowledge of musical notation and reserve of internal energy. That is why this type of martial art is considered the most difficult. But unfortunately, the effectiveness is very low. He was still going to approach him? Ruan replied that he certainly would. Only exquisite objects suited such a handsome, elegant young man. Heron said he remembered that he had once been interested in this too. Let them pick out some sound-manipulating items for him too. As for instruments, he doesn't really know how to play anything, so it's up to him what he can use as a weapon later. Ruin said that it was great, and that meant it was decided. His instrument was guqin. Let all disciplines be connected to it. Heron replied that he had decided to. Let him choose for him too. Changhong thought that there was no need to pretend, as if they were asking him after much thought. This was clearly their style. He certainly thought about helping, but he didn't expect that he would have to do all the work for them. Yun said that he had marked 11 items here, and he wants to choose from them now. Changhong thought that it turns out that he can't carry the boy on his neck yet. In the evening, Changhong said that it had been a productive day. He had not expected that there were so many compulsory subjects and that they all turned out to be from different fields of knowledge. But Ruin said it was such a bunch of useless crap. All that was left was to hope for more. Heron replied that yes, he was also looking forward to it. Yoon said that he liked almost everything and thanked Changona. The guy was surprised and said that at least one person was grateful. Heron replied that no, and he was very grateful. It was cool to rely on such an experienced person. Ruin said that's not the word, as if he studied here for 5 years. Apparently, every old man has more than enough experience. He'll take note. Changhong replied that they were expressing themselves in a strange way. It was almost itching. Yun asked if he hadn't been too careless in choosing one for himself, seemingly at random, from the same ones as them, wasn't he? Changhong replied that it wasn't quite right. To be fair, it was pretty good. But suddenly birds flew overhead and Ryun asked, "What are they?" Heron looked and said that it seemed to be a postman falcon. That's right, and these are falcons trained to carry letters. Ruin said that he heard about it for the first time. Yun said he thought pigeons were used for such purposes. Changhong replied that this was the Stone Age. You won't find them in China anymore. But falcons are stronger, more resilient, and less hassle. An ordinary falcon is not easy to catch, even for a strong master. And when you don't need to carry letters, you can take a falcon hunting. They are very smart, incredibly loyal, and remember several roads at once. Heron replied that it was then clear why demand for Skolov had increased. Ruin said that he wanted one too. What should be done? Changhong replied that he could buy one. There was a shop somewhere in Cheonmuhakwan that sold them. However, the price of one was 3 months' budget for a family of 5, and the expensive ones cost well over 20 silver coins. Ruin asked, he says, somewhere here? Changhong answered that, as far as is known, the pavilion of the Heavenly Eagle. Actually, there is a whole clan that rules the birds, but on the wave of an already known trend. Their business has grown so well that now their shops are everywhere. He remembers that next to the house where the bird flew, there must be exactly the place they need. Ruin was very happy and said that they should move quickly. Arriving at the house, he asked what they had come for, and the building looked impressive. Heron replied that he agreed, a monumental building. But Ruin called this building the Pavilion of the Flying Eagle, and it seemed to be about the Pavilion of the Sky. Changhong said that the Flying Eagle Pavilion is a place where the pigeons and falcons that other students have acquired are taken care of. Something like a bird dormitory. Cheonmuhakwan is quite concerned about safety. Changhong said that the goods were being offered in the building next door. The seller met them and asked, did they come for a new falcon? And that they should not be shy and look around. Yun looked and said, what cuties? Heron answered that it was true. It is true that it is written that this friend is a pigeon, intended for training. And 3 rings, what does that mean? The seller replied that they mark this way how many roads the bird is able to remember and how well it is trained. The gold ring indicates the 5th level and the silver one the 1st. That is, if necessary, he can remember more than 7 roads. Such birds usually have 7 to 9 rings, and the coolest ones have 10 to 12. In general, as they already understood, the degree of giftedness depends on the number of rings. Falcons of the highest order help their owners in hunting, but it is worth remembering that the price of a male depends on his power. Now, there is a special offer. Of course, they can pay off the cost of the bird in full within 3 months. But if they pay the entire amount at once, they will receive a 1% discount. Ruin said this one has 3 gold, so it's level 15. He said the maximum is 12. Then what kind of bird is this? The seller was surprised and replied that he had a diamond eye. He immediately marked the best one. This one comes from an eastern country called Kor. He is so smart that they could not determine what the ceiling of his capabilities was. So to speak, he is even outside the system. Honestly, the guy has no shortage of ferocity. No matter how much we tried, he still kicks. He never acknowledges himself as the master. And then Ruin said that he wanted it. The seller was surprised and asked, really? Then he suggests getting to know each other better in the training room. And I wouldn't lie, he's already maimed 30 people. And let him remember, the use of physical force is strictly prohibited. If he injures a bird, he'll have to pay compensation for the damage. Ruin said it was funny, but he'll try. And don't worry, he'll make it look beautiful. Immediately after that, they went to the training hall. But they began to hear voices and shouts, and suddenly they all disappeared. And then Ruing himself came out and said that it was the end. So it suited him very well. If only they could see how cute he was when he was angry. And he immediately decided that he was buying it. Ruin thought about what to name him, and he decided to call him Thunder. It suits him very well. The leader received the letter and said that it was good news. If the prince of the dark sect was a nice guy, there was no reason to worry yet. Namgung replied that the Lord of Moyon was personally monitoring the problematic students, and apparently the girl named Yeonbi had not shown up yet. He thought that everything would be calm for now. Then someone came, and the head said that he was listening attentively. The guy replied that the lady had finished her training and was returning home. The student suddenly said, "That's what the seventh divine sword is." The guy was told that it seems so. That same Mo and Hui. And it seems to him that the lecture hasn't even started yet. But he already feels serious tension. He gives off the aura of a straight-A student. The student said, "Is he really going to write down every word?" He heard, of course, that the lessons, the philosophy of the white sect, and the history of martial arts require a lot of effort, but not that much. And they say that the methods of an excellent student are always correct. When the lecture's over, he will go and buy himself the same set. Suddenly, Chung Hong turned to Hui and said that he saw how the boy was prepared. But the students said that it was the first lesson and they already had a replacement. It seemed that the teacher was not feeling well. Ruin asked him if he could wear a sign that said freshman. The students heard and asked if he was a freshman. But Yun stood up for himself and said that Chung Hong was just like them. He was given the wrong medicine as a child. That's why he developed side effects, and he's 25. Heron told the boy to calm down and not interfere. The students asked in surprise, 25? Is he joking? Heron said they themselves found it hard to believe. He thought they could do it? Why bother? Moreover, their friend clearly doesn't care. Does he know that if it bothered him, he would shave and try to look younger? But Chung Hong heard and said that it would be better if he kept quiet. He was already starting to go gray because of them. Heron asked, what does this have to do with him? Chung Hong said that the lesson will start soon and let him sit down. He watches during the day and at night he wipes the papers with his eyes. There is not even time to sleep. Monsters. Yun said that there was no one around, it was dark. And in the middle of an open field there were 4 plum trees. But in the morning, one of them, for no apparent reason, magically disappeared. And one day the elder decided to watch this 4th one. Or maybe someone chopped it up. Chun Hong thought, maybe they'll stop talking nonsense. Let them go to bed quickly. But he thought that the 4th suddenly bent in half, and scarlet eyes appeared between the branches. He was asked, so it really was a ghost? Chung Kan replied that the story was definitely not a rosy one, and he had a lot of work to do. They were already driving him crazy day after day, and he had to work at night. Isn't that too much? And he had to write reports on these assholes every day. Lately he was shaking. And now as things were going on, the master got scared, took out his sword and ran to the tree, and the guy asked, so abruptly? He feels he has plenty of courage. Chung Hong asked, what should I understand by this? Why is the document chest so huge? Have they completely lost their minds? Chung Hong said that he was told that if he did not punish the disobedient students, the most terrible fate would inevitably await them all. He hoped he just looked big. He did not think that he was full of papers, and he should not. Suddenly, during class, Heron said that it seemed that Chung Hong had died, and he asked Ryuan if he knew the story of the ghost of the Hwasun clan, which looked like a wild plum bush. They say that their elder not only saw it, but also received some great task. Ruin was surprised and asked in response, does that mean that if he catches you, he will give you free treats? Heron said that he understood and so. But Ruin saw that he had stopped at the most important thing and asked, so? Yun was also very surprised and said that this was a master from the Shaman clan, one of the 8 strongest healers of Aachen, Jin Ying. Ying said that perhaps they would begin with the foundation that they would need for all future studies. It would stretch out like a long, winding thread, accompanying them through 100 years of martial arts history. and finally stop at the moment in which they were now living. And asked them why they entered Cheonmuhakwan. Firstly, he was sure that they wanted to achieve excellence in one thing or another. Secondly, being the children of the white sect, filled with desires to increase their strength, they intended to strengthen the power of the cult in a difficult confrontation with the dark sect, namely the Black Sky Coalition, as well as the Machunkwak lair, where most of the assassins are trained. But above all else, there is another goal, a goal that absolutely everyone sitting here is pursuing. They all hope to become a reliable support for their own clan. Instead, against those who may appear at any moment. Exactly, against the spirits of heavenly sorrow. The disciples at that moment thought, the Heavenly One calls them as if nothing had happened. And the rest thought, how to sit through to the end now? Ying said he believed they were even afraid to pronounce the bizarre name. But there was another name whose pronunciation had been strictly taboo for centuries. And this is a heavenly spirit thirsty for blood. The embodiment of terror, whose name has shaken China for thousands of years. He is a real symbol of fear and despair, against which both sects, forgetting their differences, have risen up. These enemies still exist, slowly devouring humanity from the inside. Their purpose is to grow stronger and destroy the monstrous evil. And it was for this purpose that more than 100 years ago, the god of the Great Limit, Hyuk Wolrin, built Cheonmuhakwan, asking for help from the Holy Trinity of Heavenly Warriors. Ruin apologized and said he had a question. Teacher Ying asked in surprise, what was it? Ruin asked who this god of the Great Limit and the Holy Trinity of Heavenly Warriors were. The disciples thought, what kind of nonsense is this? As if he was born yesterday. Ying asked what his name was. He couldn't believe it. There was a man in China who didn't know the idols of modern times. Is this some kind of joke? Or did he have an accident and lose his memory? Ruin replied that he didn't. And introducing himself, he said that he was perfectly healthy, and he was asking because he really didn't know. Ying said he didn't expect something like this to happen. And then they'll do it like this. It would be too easy if he told it now. He thinks this is a good opportunity to get to know all the heroes of days gone by better. Great, and he gives them a task. Ying told them to write a 5-page essay about their great ancestors and the bloody consequences of the bloodthirsty heavenly spirits' deeds. The size of the sheet will be 20.6 centimeters. The size of the hieroglyph no more than 1.5 centimeters. He asked not to make indents and not to leave space for headers and footers. Chanhong told him to look. It was all because of him. Let him imagine now what hatred they would harbor. Notice those crazed faces? Ruin replied that he was just telling the truth. Why would he do such a stupid thing? Changhong asked. Where did this task even come from? Judging by the way he bargained for the falcon, he clearly didn't come from the wilderness. And still doesn't know the God of War and the Holy Trinity? Ruin replied that as long as the questions were not related to everyday problems, it was not necessary to know the answers to them. And when they finished writing, let him look at it. And if they wrote for him, he would be grateful. Changhong asked, why on earth? Let him read the textbook and do it himself. Or let him ask Heron. And then Heron asked, did they call him? Did he misheard or something? The top half are your books, and Changhong can take them. Ah Yun said that his half was only for Ryun. He took them and thanked them for their help. Changhong replied that now, thanks to them, he didn't have to bother. Heron said that it was okay. They helped them with choosing the subjects. He wanted to thank them somehow. Yun said that he also decided to do something for Ryun. After all, he promised to help with the plum blossoms. Ryun asked the student, what did he have so much of? Did he save it for them? Hui answered that no, every last one was his, and also when he studies, he doesn't like people making noise around him. That's why he asked not to come in this evening. Hui turned around and said he was leaving. Yun heard this and replied that he was amazing. What a perfect student he was. Ruin said that he had nothing personal, but he already had plans. After the meal, he would go and look at how the thunder was being trained. Changhong didn't listen and told him to stop fooling around. Was he really going to ask him to write his essay for him? Heron told Changhong that Ruin was a good guy and a friend. He certainly wouldn't act so dishonestly. The elder received the information and said, so it turns out that the White Crane has finished training and will return very soon? Where did you get this information? The chief replied that the sore roommate was being followed. He reported that after she left the pavilion of the Flying Eagle, she immediately went to her room and spent half an hour cleaning. Her eyes shimmered with a rainbow shine. The elder said that he understood this, and only that girl could make her smile. So the note was sent via the Falcon. He asked, "How is this connected to the fact that it will soon be time to eliminate him?" The chief asked, "What did he forget?" "Once the white crane returns to Cheonmuhakwan, a wild life will begin, and no one will look back. The plan is perfect, so the day of her return will be the day of the death of the vile creature." Ruin was sitting at his homework and asked what the problem was. In his opinion, everything was perfect. Look, he even wrote 5 pages. Heron asked if he was really going to hand in the paper like that. Chung Hong said he hoped so. Was the guy joking about hearing about the god of war and that scary name for the first time? Ruin asked how he knew since no one had told him. The boys were surprised and asked what. Chung Hong said that every Chinese person had to stumble over them at least once in their childhood. Something like that. Heron replied that after these words, the children immediately stopped crying. It was especially frightening when they spoke. If he stays out late and plays around, the spirit of heavenly sorrow will come out of the well and swallow him alive. And the next morning, the water in it will turn bright red and clean bones will float on the surface. Ruin said it was horrible. Is the spirit of heavenly sorrow some kind of gang of monsters and ghosts? Chung Hong replied that it was not. It was simply the embodiment of cruelty. But who else could have treated this topic so frivolously? There are certain criteria when writing an essay, especially regarding the font size, so why these childish blots? And more precisely, this garish style and constant scribbles seem to be asking for a bad mark. That is a cruel, bloody murderer, and he wrote as if he was the result of steadfast faith and languid hopes. What a frightening nonsense. But the most dangerous and terrible thing he dared to draw. And he depicted either an idol or a god. Did he intend to embellish history? Chung Hong replied, "What nonsense." He simply gave the appearance of a real villain. No need to slander here. The most terrible person in the world looks exactly like this. Chung Hong said that as the proverb goes, the absence of intelligence gives courage. And he is not just a robber and not even a demon, but rather an obsession of fear. As soon as he was born, the first thing he did was to completely take over the dark sect. And every step he takes causes thousands and thousands of deaths. Heron said that the spirit of heavenly sorrow gradually devoured everything in its path, which could not help but be terrifying. In the end, as he said, a righteous coalition emerged. Heron took out his inscriptions and said that it was harsh. Ruan replied that it was true. After all, they themselves said that only the god of war could defeat the heavenly spirit, and the demon god also helped him. Heron replied that it was true, it was written that way in the textbook. Chung Hong said that in practice, they were specifically compiled only from the position of the white sect. In reality, there were 2 gods of war. The only one who survived the fight against the bloodthirsty heavenly spirit was the god of the Great Limit, Lord Hekwol Rin. Since then, the white sect began to call him the god of war. But in fact, another master fought with the fiend of hell, the tyrant's sword, Lord Kal Jun Hek. In the dark sect, he was also elevated to the rank of a god. Since the nicknames, surprisingly, turned out to be identical, in order to distinguish them, the word demonic was added. But although there are rumors that even in the dark sect, recently they have been following the general canons more. Ruin replied that it seemed that after the incident with the spirit of heavenly sorrow, the dark and white sects decided to join forces. But in the end, it turns out that they can't simply sort out the nicknames. Heron said that there was indeed such a thing. However, after that incident, they began to get along quite well. Ruin asked, so both sides united and attacked as a crowd, but still lost? Heron replied that both had suffered serious losses. The tyrant's sword, which had inflicted the first serious wound, and the god of the Great Limit, who had made the decisive dash, were both seriously wounded, and each had to spend 3 or 4 years to recover. Chung Hong replied that according to the textbook, the losses amounted to almost half of the population, and more than 30 years were spent on restoring the forces and the destroyed cities. They say that about 1,000 carriages full of silver coins were put into work. But of course, the main tragedy is that the body of this cruel terrorist named Wei Cheon-su was never found. Nor was the gang of murderers led by the spirit of heavenly sorrow eradicated. Ruin said that means the battle took place over 100 years ago. She probably died of old age. Why bother? Heron replied that of course the bastard had been seriously wounded, but if you recall his skill level, there was still a reason. He'd probably last a couple of centuries. Chung Hong said that, for example, the Lord of the Righteous Coalition, along with the demonic god of war, have existed well beyond 100. At the same time, Muryang Jinin of the Hwasun clan is turning 150 this year. After all, he is a real monster. Heron replied that at that time he was about 50. That means he can continue to commit atrocities somewhere for at least that long. Chung Hong said that this is why the righteous and dark coalitions exist. It was not for nothing that the god of war once built their school, wanting to prevent a catastrophe. It was then that the holy trinity of heavenly warriors, the greatest masters of the celestial empire, who made an insurmountable contribution to the process of fighting the great disaster, became a huge help to him. Chung Hong said that one of these saints was the grandfather of the seventh divine sword, Moen Hui, who was also his master, the Lord of the Blade. You live with his grandson in the same room, and he doesn't know about such an important person. Sometimes his stupidity breaks through all conceivable limits. Ryuan replied that this misophobe didn't know his master's name either. No difference. Then why is he the only one called a fool? Chung Hong said that it was natural. After all, his level of fame obviously doesn't compare to the Holy Trinity. So what is he called? Ruin replied that he refuses to comment on matters concerning his personal life. It seems that it is enough to just glance at him, and it will immediately become clear. And if they gave birth to and raised someone like him, it means that his ancestors were not from simple people. He understood that he did not want to drag the damned old man into it. Heron said he understood everything and asked, "Is he really not afraid?" Everyone in the white and dark sects is afraid to stutter about this. He is a real master of terror. Ruin asked, "Should he?" It's a strange thing to be afraid of some old man, adding to the matter conjectures and rumors. They themselves said that Chon Muhakwan was built to raise masters who would be able to defeat him. How are they going to catch him now with wet pants? Chung Hong was surprised and replied that he didn't expect to call a bloodthirsty heavenly spirit a grandpa. He thought that after the flower allergy, there was nothing to shock him anymore. Then Ruin asked why the test subject, Oh Jun-ho, hadn't returned yet. Was there supposed to be an evening training session? Heron said that yes, it was strange. The last lesson on the schedule was a bit out of order. That's why he parted ways with it. Still, he should have finished long ago. Strange. And then Yoon burst in and shouted at the guy. Ryuan replied that he would remember, and here it was. What did he want? Heron said that he looked bad. Did something happen? Yoon replied that after class, those seniors approached him. Lee Hak told him that as soon as he saw the sign, he should bring Ryuan there. He would have to get rid of the others somehow. Nayeon also said that it was all true. This was his chance to get rid of the shame. He shouldn't let him down. If something goes wrong and he guesses everything. Yun replied that no, absolutely not. Their orders were of course of great importance, but he would not betray his friends. Let them punish him instead. Nan said, what does that mean comrades from your own clan are allowed? Ryun is the enemy of the entire area. Lee Hak also told him to stop. If the head does not understand, then they will put smart thoughts into it by force. Heron got angry and asked, was it a bad beating? How are you feeling? Chung Hong replied that there would be no trouble since he told them everything. Yun said it was nothing serious. Seniors usually don't hit you in the face. There were bruises all over his body, but no internal bleeding. And if he disobeyed, they would go away in much the same way again. But he's more worried about Ryun's situation. Even if he refuses, he feels like they'll easily find someone else to get even with him. Let him be extremely careful. Ryun said it was funny. It would be better if he said that he was ready to personally help at any time. He hated running away. Yun replied that they would certainly cause a lot of trouble. Chung Hong said no, it would be better to let him do as he was told. Since the trap was inevitable, it would be good to understand the map from the outside in advance. Heron said it was a great plan, and Yun would also remain on guard. They were watching them from a distance. Chung Hong said they would figure it out somehow. But something was scary about the hidden nature. Ruin said that he was, on the contrary, in anticipation, and he hoped that at least this time he would try his best. Chung Hong saw that he was a walking disaster, but for some reason he thought that everything would go in a different direction. The elder asked, apparently Yun had already told everything? But then what about the plan? How did it fail right away? The chief replied that it was the opposite. Everything was going as well as ever. They continued to wait for the arrival of the red horse. The 9 gates have already set their priorities, but the last arrow will be left to the main character. Let the crane have some fun, too. Seo Cheon-gun of the Cheon-song clan asked what they wanted to tell him, that from the 9 clans, the 2 strongest should be chosen. But any graduates who serve at the school are excluded? Gun asked, why not send a couple of elders instead? He thinks they could easily deal with this boy. And the girl Chen Ha-gyong from the Hwasan clan replied that she agreed. Of course, if they, Mr. Advisor and Mr. Vice Chairman, propose to act in this way, then there are reasons for that. But in her opinion, wouldn't it be humiliating to throw a bunch of people at one? And the disciple from the Shaolin monastery said that unfortunately, the troop of monks from Shaolin will hardly be able to participate. Lately, they have been trained so cruelly, any wayward behavior is nipped in the bud. But Ku Yanjin of the Gongruyun clan said that it means they will only stand at the 7 gates. The disciples of the Ami clan also refused. She believes that Vice Chief Jin Ren did her best. Yeksang Hak of the Kondong clan said that there was a rumor going around that she recently joined that strange society, the steel bracelets. Could the other guys from the Ami clan have followed in their footsteps? He heard it said that their followers practiced in heavy shackles that they wore on their hands and feet. Jen said that she doesn't think so. She just grew a lot in skill and is now intensively training her comrades. But Yu Sung from the Jumshan clan said that the Shaolin guys had a good reason, but he was disappointed in the students from the Ami clan. If someone they knew were disgraced, they would immediately rush to their defense, but now they turn away as if it were none of their business. And then the chief said, nevertheless, maybe it's for the best. He planned to organize an ambush along the entire perimeter, not only because I was doing it to punish him, but also in order to prepare for the upcoming festival of the 3 holy masters. And it is for this reason that he asked to select a couple of strong men, excluding the elders and their deputies. Yu Sung of the Kondong clan said that, in other words, who will participate in the first round is already clear. Therefore, he hopes to bring the guys into shape for the next one. The leader said that it was absolutely true. This year it is unclear what the outcome will be. The disciples from the 8 clans community have become very strong. They can no longer be ignored. First, we should note the Namguns, who have sharply increased their strength, and also the almost invincible children of the Dan clan. And in general, almost all of the stranger group are in the Union of 8. Moreover, Hunun from the Shaman clan and Jin Ren from the Ami clan are also members of their community. But as they understand, their souls have long since left their native abode. At the same time, the grandson of the Sword Lord, the future ruler of the Moan clan, entered Cheonmuhakwan, the 7th divine sword. And he lives in the same room with that young man, Biryu Yan. No, even with the merciless monster. And those who suffered from him said that his hands were like iron blades, his movements were faster than lightning, and his blows were like the breath of death. Moreover, his main weapon is the surprise effect, and he attacks with all his might, without any morality or conscience. But on the other hand, for the students waiting for him at the 7 gates, it will be an excellent training that will allow them to gain invaluable experience. And the whole process is supervised by the vice chairman of their community, Mr. Chong Hung from the Shaman clan. Sun looked and said that it seemed they had already thought of everything. What if he died before completing the intended path? Khan said that, or vice versa, true. I don't want to imagine, and yet, what will happen if even such a test does not cut short his miserable life? The chief replied that in the first case, the students would have to hold back their energy so that the scoundrel would somehow or other reach the end. Let him suffer hellish pains, let him beg for death. Because when he finally reaches the finish line, he will meet an even more merciless person. Surely this fool will think that his life is saved now, because before him will appear the precious daughter of the righteous coalition. No, all of the white sect, the beautiful crane on Ye Rin. The next day, Teacher In took Ryuan's work and said that in 10 years of working at Cheonmuhakwan, this was the first time he had seen such work. He couldn't resist and decided to show it, because he was told that the guy had joined them on their recommendation. But master, he got the job too and said he was a crazy demon. He turned out to be terribly stupid too. And why should he be so ashamed of him? And told him to give him a bad grade. In asked the master, and he thought so too? It was strange, but for the first time in many years he smiled. And then he gave it a pass and said that no matter how you look at it, Such free, unclouded views are what help China move forward. And he hopes that this courage will be reborn into bravery in the future, and they should support such young guys. At this time, Chang Hong said that he couldn't believe it, as a teacher, but maybe he just forgot to put no before why. Heron also said that he doubted. Let him see what is written next to it. This time he put why, because he highly appreciated the original flight of thoughts. But in the future, if he does not adhere to the demands of leniency, one cannot expect it. And then he gave Ryan an additional task, to thoroughly study the atrocities of the spirit of heavenly sorrow and write an essay, adhering to the established rules. Chung-Hong said that he seemed to understand. He had heard it many times, but this was the first time he saw it. A student who received the teacher's love with a red brush must pay for it with blood. And he said that if Okyun In decided to take on someone, he would give him instruction after instruction until he began writing essays with blood flowing from his nose from overwork. Heron asked Ruin if he could stand it. The boy replied that he didn't know, and it seemed that the teachers had conspired and decided to kill him with wild boredom. Ruin remembered all his lessons and asked how much more of this nonsense he would have to absorb. Chang Hong said that Ruin should be like Mo and he, concentrating on his studies and greedily absorbing such valuable knowledge. He was lucky enough to occupy the place that all the youth of China are fighting for. And he whines and whines. Chun Hong said that so be it, he would take them to an interesting place. Let them follow him. Heron was surprised and asked where. In the city under the bench, they shouted that everyone who wanted to reach new heights in sword control was invited to join them. Let them take their places quickly. A strong fist for every man. They welcome all the girls in the area, a community of martial arts history enthusiasts, and realistic paintings. Anyone can do miracles. Heron was surprised and said that they were on the most popular street in Cheomuhakwan, the community street. Ryun asked, "What is this?" Chung Hong turned around and said that he didn't know again, just that he could just consider some kind of union of people with common interests. Heron told Ryan that he should join something too. In Cheomuhakwan, he should join such institutions. Well, at least one. Otherwise, they could kick him out for being passive. Ruin asked, and where in their opinion is the most interesting? But suddenly someone from behind asked them if they were looking for somewhere to fall in the evening. The boy asked if they would like to join the most powerful society in Cheomuhakwan, the Sword Spirit Society, and he offered to learn the truth of Jian together. But the guy asked, since when did the Blade Spirit Society become the most powerful in the school? The Zhao Spirit Society surpasses them in every way. Let them not raise their stick in front of the newbies. But the disciple told him to stop and stop talking nonsense. He was the first to cross paths with them. The guy asked, who else is being sly? Is he asking for trouble? The student answered, how could he start talking? You can tell right away what kind of family he was raised in. Heron asked, is this like sword energy? They wanted to invite them, but ended up fighting among themselves? Chung Hong answered that it was immediately obvious. There was nowhere to put their strength. But suddenly a guy came up next to him and said that Jian, or Dao, how low his colleagues had sunk in an attempt to lure them over to their side. And that meant they would go to them and would definitely fall into someone's disfavor. Ruin asked, where is it better then? Heron replied that maybe he could tell me where to go. The guy replied that of course to them. Their circle lights a fire in a man's heart. Boredom? Such a concept has no place here. And the longer they stay there, the more they learn great camouflage techniques. Ruan said it was an amazing place. Can we see it? The guy replied that of course it was possible and asked if they were already leaving. Having reached the place, he said that they were there. Entering, Heron said that it was funny here. Everyone was surprised, of course, and didn't know what to say. The guy smirked and said, welcome to the club of those who like girls. But by this time, a carriage with the princess arrived at the clan, and she said that she would leave from here alone. But Namgung was very surprised and asked the princess if she was okay. The princess asked, what could be wrong? Chung Hong understood that it was originally a very ordinary club where methods of camouflage and disappearance were studied. And it seems that it happened around the time he graduated from Cheonmuhakwan. And there was a rumor that some horrible pervert took over the position of the club's head. The guy said that in one word, they are a club for lovers of young beauties. Chung Hong sees that they have deteriorated beyond recognition. They should be destroyed immediately. Heron said that is, here they paint portraits and sculpt statues. Imagining beautiful women? The guy replied that no, all the girls in the pictures are real beauties. But the fat man said that all the items here are their treasures, which were obtained through long searches. It took a lot of work to collect secret information about the young ladies. Now their miners are all over China. The guy said, that's right. And this is the head of their club, Mr. B. Yan Tai. He's the best master here. Chung Hong thought that he was such a pervert and knew the famous techniques of the ancients. He doesn't even believe it. This fat guy, Ruin asked, secret materials on every beauty from all over China? Why are they collecting all this? The guy was surprised and said that of course it was unexpected. Because they want to feel warmth. It doesn't matter what sect he is in, white or dark. Every man likes seductive beauties. It's in them by nature. Does he understand? Tay said that everyone wants to touch the beautiful and the great, and their precious relics describe this process in great detail. And day after day, they improve their skills, getting more and more incredible experts. The guy said that now no beauty will slip past the all-encompassing eye, and until the Almighty wills otherwise, they will not stop pursuing. Chung Hong said that he thinks they think that extracting useless information using complex techniques is cool and necessary. Heron said that it was also scary. Ruin replied that as far as he knew, people called people like them perverts. And so this place is a lair of robbers who indulge their base instincts. Tay asked, bandits? They just like pretty girls. That's why they watch them closely. No violence. The guy also said that's exactly it. They're not like bandits. They're not from Chengzhou. Let him imagine that there are rumors that these maniacs recently cut off a guy's hand. He understands that he spoke ill of the idol they worship. If their leader did not possess such divine inaccessibility and strength, the group would have been destroyed long ago. And yet they can understand they do not break the law. They only admire the wealth that nature has gifted to the local girls. Heron said that he thought they would be furious, but how subtly they avoided this moment. Chung Han answered that it seemed that they had not yet completely lost their conscience. Although these thieves, like ordinary robbers, are all criminals. The guy asked, are they speaking so loudly on purpose? How dare they call them by such a vile word? But then other students came and greeted everyone, asking if they knew what they had brought. He learned the parameters of the lady's body. The second student started laughing and said that it was easy, and he stole the shoe of a famous beauty, Mrs. Kakaki. Ruin said that his friends immediately called their specialty correctly. Thieves. Where should you go in such cases? The police or the teachers, I think? The guy replied that they didn't take anything. He just wrote down what the dressmaker said. The second guy said that was too much of a stretch. The shoe wasn't expensive at all, and it was terribly worn. The lady definitely wanted to throw it away. But he took what he needed. Heron said maybe they won't hand them over. They'd better inform the injured ladies about everything. Chen Hong asked if he was talking about Mrs. X66 and Mrs. KKK. The guy shouted that they were monsters. They wanted to kill these young guys? After all, if these ladies found out about everything, they wouldn't just kill them. They'd burn them over a slow fire. They are beautiful and gentle on the outside, but merciless on the inside. They will crush the guys like cockroaches. What will they be able to do in the world of martial arts after that? They could agree that it was hard to call what Cheo Qi and Seo Hai did a terrible thing, and he thinks no one even noticed what happened. Chung Hong asked, are they the same twin celestial ghosts? Although there are definitely no other guys with such names. Heron asked, so these are the famous seniors in front of them? Chung Hong said yes, but seriously, they are known primarily for their bad reputation. Dan Cheo Qi of the Dan clan and Cheon Seo Hai of the Divine Gate are master inventors. But the truth is, they have a trail of serious problems everywhere they go. Surin asked if he really talked about them. It's hard to believe. Chung Hong said not to think too much. This is a common idea. They are a walking headache, and they know how to get out of it in different ways. The guy said that they had been acting willfully since the first day they entered Chonmohakwan. That's why he thought that they would understand them better than anyone. What a disappointment. Ruin asked, so they found out about them a long time ago and then invited them? The guy asked, how else? Cholki and Seo Hai noted their rebellious nature and love of freedom. But the guys grabbed him and said that sometimes their friend talks outright nonsense. Heron said he thought they were trying to cover up everything that happened on the day he was admitted. But it seems there's more to it than that. And why are they acting so weird? Like they're hiding something. Chen Hong asked, really? and he thought that these two were very good at technology and were in it. He remembered that the manager had said something was wrong. Chung Hong turned to them and said, by any chance, weren't they the ones who helped Cheon Sang activate the third level of the security system on the day the freshmen entered Cheon Mohakwan? The guy asked, what's wrong? What a surprise. Did something happen that day? The second guy also answered that they didn't know anything. And who is this Chung San? Chung Hong said, what a wonderful coincidence. The Divine Gate School that Mr. Cheon Sohai came from has a very close relationship with the Tiger Fang School. But Ruin couldn't help but ask, so it was the two of them who organized that funny performance. The boys were very scared and decided to run away. But Ryan stood in front of them and said that he thought they had something to talk about. Tay said that if they were going to communicate with violence, he asked them to continue outside. This is where his precious treasures rest. Ruin replied that he didn't even know, and something told him that the conversation would be long with each of those present. And I wouldn't want to offer them, Mr. Pervert, the opportunity to atone for their guilt. Of course, if they follow his instructions. Heron said that he thought Ruin was up to something again. Chung Hong replied that it seemed like it wouldn't hurt to call the fire brigade. Tai asked, what if he doesn't agree? Will he burn everything in this building? Ruin replied that he wasn't joking. But don't worry, he's in a good mood today. Besides, he really needs to join some club or group right now. And then let them fulfill 3 conditions and he will even join their circle. And they can believe, thanks to him, this place can soon become very popular. The guy asked in surprise, could a club for lovers of young girls become famous? And how? Chung Hong asked him what he was doing. Heron also said that he didn't know what he had decided, but maybe he should think it through carefully. Ruin replied that he actually felt quite okay and had made his decision very thoughtfully. If you took away all the signs of perversion, criminals, and stupidity, this club could be much more interesting than others. Chun Hong said that if all 3 of these things were to be eliminated, what would be left of this club? Heron also asked, does he think it will work? Ruin replied that it was quite possible. And what will they say, respected chairman? Does he remember that if he refuses, all their treasures will burn to ashes in a minute? Tay thought about it and said that he agreed, and decided to listen first. Ryan replied that it was a smart decision, and his proposal would be like this. Firstly, since the club already has such a name, it will collect amazing information about beautiful girls from all over the Middle Kingdom. But all sorts of nonsense, like body parameters, will not be needed. Club members will be looking for useful information. And secondly, the club will give advice to young people on how to make friends with the object of their affection, how to court. Of course, not for free. And thirdly, but suddenly Yoon Jun-ho came and asked if they could tell him where Ruin was. He was told that he was heading here. Ruin immediately asked him what had happened. Yoon was scared and replied that the day had come. They asked him to bring him immediately. Heron asked, so those same John Lee Hak and Chuga Yeon told him to bring Ryun? Yoon answered that yes, those same ones. Heron said he hoped they didn't lay a hand on him this time. Yoon replied no. That wasn't true, but he's more worried about Ruin. Heron said that it looks like they're up to something. Ruin is supposed to be fine, and those 2 are definitely not his equal. Chung Hong replied that he doesn't think it's just the 2 of them. Heron asked what they were trying to say. He thought a whole gang of Hwasan clan disciples would come after Ruin. Chung Hong replied that he didn't know, but if they knew, when their demon won at the entrance exams and on the first day, given that they weren't stupid, they must have prepared well. Since it wasn't only the Hwasanites who suffered at Ruin's hands, one can expect that anyone will meet him there. But he thinks these guys aren't going to bury him alive. They clearly have another goal, and the gathering point isn't a crowded place. Or to be more precise, teachers never go there. This is a site for independent training, and so that students do not feel shy and hone their skills there. But most often it is used as a place for fights without rules. Yoon said that it was true. John Lee Hak and Chu Ga-yeon didn't say anything specific, but he noticed that they were planning something. Maybe he shouldn't let Ryuan in there? It would be dangerous there. Heron said he was sure nothing like that would happen to their friend, but he was saying they wouldn't sit back if he was in danger. Yun said that he too. He may not be much use, but he will still try to help out somehow. Of course, he will hardly be able to show off the plum blossom technique, but he will swing his sword vigorously. Heron said that was great. They would help together. Chung Hong replied that they would watch, but the 2 of them, especially him, Ryuan, needed to change positions. He thinks that if anything happens, he will have to track Ruin instead of protect him. Heron asked what he wanted to say. Chung Hong replied that without permission from the teachers' committee, organizing fights without rules would result in a severe punishment. If someone is earlier or dies, it's completely over. Does he remember that last time they were given strict orders? And if someone suddenly dies, they will be kicked out anyway. In his opinion, Ryun is not the type to give in to indulgences. Yun got scared and said that he hoped he wouldn't kill his friends. Heron replied that it was clear. If he did, everyone would be expelled from the school. They had to keep a close eye on their bloodthirsty comrade. Chung Hong said that he was thinking the same thing, and he doesn't like that he's still not here, and even more so, how he reacted to Yun's words about the meeting. Chung Hong said that judging by his reaction, he was clearly not excited. On the contrary, he looked like a serial killer. And what is the secret weapon? Dynamite, maybe? Yun replied that he was only used in war, but then he asked, could Ryun really do something like that? But Heron said that his friend was a very dangerous warrior, and if he really had prepared the dynamos, they could also be covered by the explosion. Well, for the sake of a comrade, you'll do anything. But then Ruin came and asked, what is this for? He doesn't know what they have planned, but let them not forget, today he is the main guest of honor. But then Chan Hong was surprised and asked what he was hiding under his clothes. Heron asked if he really brought explosives. Ruin asked what they were saying. So you can get something like that in Cheomahakwan? Where? In a store. Haryong replied that it turned out he couldn't bring it for him after all. Ruin asked in surprise, swords? And he was talking about them? He said that we need to capture it too. So he thought that he was talking about a secret weapon. Heron replied that he was grateful. So he had saved it for him too. What was that? He was in anticipation. Let him forget about the sword. Let him get the secret. Ruin told him that he knew that Heron would understand him. And immediately after taking out the item, everyone was surprised, and Chang Hong said that it was like calling it a weapon. And this is the most ordinary tableware. Ruan disagreed and said that even in ordinary tableware, there is hidden enormous potential. Just like in a person, you can't judge a thing only by its appearance. Heron said that it certainly looked interesting, but he didn't think it suited him very well. Chang Hong immediately ordered Yun to give Heron the sword. After all, it would be of more use to him. Ruin said that it was sad. Well, where to go now? Yun answered, did he understand? They need to go to the northwest part of Asanlo. Arriving at the place, Yun said, it seems they have arrived. Ryun asked with surprise. Really? And there are quite a few trees here. Heron asked, what is the connection between trees and effort? Changhan asked, what? Yes, he definitely means that it will be difficult to throw dishes. Yun told the boys that he brought him. Chung Hong also looked and replied that they were future invalids. Lee Hak said he was an idiot. What took him so long? But the guy told him to calm down. He did everything. He hoped he at least brought the right guy? Nayan said he definitely did. The boy told them to get lost then and to take the fool with them. He was sure that if they accidentally hurt him, the great master would be very upset. Nayan said that's right. They'll tie him to a tree somewhere so he doesn't call the teachers here. Lee Hak also said that he would like to join them too. As luck would have it, only 2 people are allowed to push him. Ruin was surprised and asked if there were any other restrictions. They could have stayed though. It wouldn't have helped them anyway. Yun said he can take care of himself. No need to worry about him. But these guys are really strong. Let him be careful. Ruin was surprised and replied that he was even afraid. Let them all come at once. Lee Hak said, what a bore he is. Is he asking for trouble? And then Yun replied that they were the ignoramuses. He had been patient until now, but he wouldn't anymore. Nyan said that he thought this idiot had gone completely crazy. What would he do? Yun told Ryan that he had a request for him. Let him leave the Hwasun people to him. He would run to report to the committee and his master. Lee Hak ran after him, shouting for them to catch him. The other boys said that since he asked for it, would they help him crawl to the next gate? The second student said he agreed, and if the boy couldn't do it himself, they would just carry him. Ruin asked, is there another gate? He was already disappointed, so it turns out that something else is waiting for him. The guys answered that he is a sick bastard, and they will set his brain straight. But Ruin didn't play with them and took the dishes in his hands and started waving them. The guys were very surprised and didn't understand how he did it. With each hit from Ryun, they were injured by the dishes. Ryun said that he thought he threw too hard. Although there were few rotations, apparently it was worth practicing more. And now he will probably do it. Heron said that he couldn't believe that Ryun was going to create a new kind of martial arts. Chung Hong replied that no, it must not be released. He must intervene. Otherwise, at the sight of these bowls, his appetite will evaporate. Heron asked if they should stop Ryun. Chung Hong replied that he didn't think so because they had other tasks. Heron asked if he was talking about them. At that time, Lee Hak and Nayeon were chasing after Yoon and shouting for him to stop. Yoon replied that he didn't want to, and they wouldn't raise a hand against him again. Chung Hong said no. He was talking about the audience that was slowly gathering for the show. They were just watching for now, but if they got involved, it would get really hot in here. Heron said, what do they have to lose? Maybe they'll fight all at once. In the end, they'll definitely get into trouble. Chung Hong replied that everything was correct, and he believed that the probability of expulsion in this case would increase several times. Heron smiled and said that he suggested they wait then. However, if they had to fight them, he felt that they would gain plenty of experience. At this time, someone was watching the battle on a tree, but Nayeon was screaming that she didn't understand how this thing could just go back and forth. The boy shouted to Chen Vi that it was time for them to go. Vi replied that he understood everything and they could begin, and they immediately threw down their blades. Ruin smiled and said that it was expected. If you reduce the force when throwing a little, the dishes will return. Wonderful. But unfortunately, in this case, the combat power also decreases. What to do? The guy was very surprised and thought, how did he manage to catch the blade? And with only 2 fingers, especially at the same time as the vessel was rushing at full speed. The second guy also realized that he wouldn't be able to get close, and therefore he wasn't destined to show his mastery of the sword. Ruin thought about it and said that he would continue next time. Considering the condition of the instrument, he thought it could be used as a club. The guy immediately thought about what this asshole was talking about. Was he going to beat them up? And they also realized that they would finally be able to use their signature attack. The guy turned to V and said that his sword was broken, and he decided that he would take this enemy on himself. V replied that no, he refused. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. He decided that he would use the same thing. Ruin saw this and laughed and said that this was also a great choice. The guys were already ready to fight him and were waiting for the right moment. Chung Hong asked his friend if he thought they should intervene. Does it remind him of anything? Heron thought about it and answered that it was true. He was talking about that, right? Chung Hong said he was talking about the 3 happiness punch technique. That's right, Heron asked. Is he crazy? Is he going to beat them up with that bowl? He needs to be stopped. Heron shouted at Ryun that they shouldn't be hurt too much. Chung Hong also said that sharp edges should never be used. If anything happens, you can't avoid being expelled. But Ryun didn't stop there and continued to run towards the enemy and ended up beating them with the dishes. Everyone was very surprised and couldn't believe it, and they even said it was terrible. Ruin said that this move was called the double hit technique with the utensil, and even only the back of the utensil was used. At this time in the headquarters, Jen asked what was wrong with the birds. The chief replied that they heard special sounds from Chen Hung. Considering the fact that they can't calm down, 2 of the Hwasun clan couldn't handle it. But since the blackbird doesn't move, it means the wounds aren't fatal. Jen said that they haven't been able to avenge Seob. So yet, and now there are Chen Wei and Yun Chu. Who will be next? Sun said that there were 2 of them. They would definitely get revenge for No Dab In, but he had a question. He was lured to the guys from the Hwasango clan, but how would he get to them? The leader replied that they need not worry about that. According to the plan, he was to move step by step closer to the white crane. They both had to be forced to cross the forbidden line. Gunn said that, to tell the truth, he doesn't really like the strategy itself. The white crane claims that she doesn't belong to any community, but because she is the heir of the righteous coalition, even the heir of the Na clan, the community of 8 reveres her as a goddess. Of course, he wouldn't mind protecting himself from the consequences that might arise from punishing Biruin, but somehow I don't really want to betray the object of revenge of the community of 9 clans to the white crane, who is on the side of the community of 8. The chief said that they wished to exclude her, one of the key figures of the 8 community, from the Holy Trinity Martial Arts Festival. Jen asked with surprise, should she be excluded? And having said, he replied that the heiress of the righteous coalition had punished the pervert. At first, the rumor will spread in this interpretation, and Cheon Mahakwan will probably try to suppress it. Then through Ryun's friends, they will launch a new piece of news. But suddenly someone said that it was not true. He was not a pervert. He just fought with some guys and ran there to hide from them. The chief said that here too a white crane killed him. After these words, whoever she was, the school would have to issue a punishment order. Gun said that was true, and he thought that she should also be excluded from the festival, and at best even suspended from her studies for a while. Sun said that in addition, the community of Eight's reputation would be seriously damaged. The chief replied that it was certain. Biruin was a pawn in their hands, no more and no less. They would receive a benefit 2 or 3 times greater than the moral and physical costs. And besides, they can see that she is already there. The princess was walking in the park at that time and enjoying life. Naeun said how cruel he is. And is it possible to use such merciless techniques in a normal fight? Ruin replied that they were all so annoying. Standing here and there, they had lured him in, set up a trap, and now they were judging him for taking self-defense measures. Of course, it was funny. Lee Hak told him to shut up. This is what he calls self-defense? He seriously injured Seob. So and now Chen Wei and Eunju. Nayeon also said that they wouldn't tolerate this anymore. She would deal with him herself. But suddenly Yoon stood up for them and told them to stop. This couldn't be done. Yoon said that they still couldn't win. Besides, the fault really lies with them today. But Nan slapped him in the face and said that he was a real disgrace to the clan, a traitor to his own comrades. How could anyone justify an enemy? Heron wanted to intercede, but Chung Hong told him to stop. Judging by Yun's face, it was not a good idea to interfere for now. Yun said that today was the first time he was really disappointed in them. He might not be the one to say such things, but what they did today definitely wasn't an act of honor. And besides, should he accept and cover for them just because they are from the same clan? Where is the difference between Hwasun and bandits in that case? No, there can be no talk of such a thing. Lee Hak was surprised and asked how he even came up with this idea. And since he was asking for it, they would kill him first. But Rune didn't let that happen and threw the dishes towards them with such a strong attack that they couldn't handle them. But Lee Hak didn't stop and they both attacked him. But Yun was faster and immediately dodged. Yun immediately used the technique and grabbed the sword from Nain's hands. He began to fight them seriously and did not want to give in to the enemies. Heron said that it seemed that Yun had grown up. Chung Hong also said that he would agree. It seemed like that. It certainly looked weak, but he was able to understand the truth. He understood that this was the plum blossom sword control technique, or more precisely, the 7th plum sword. If Ho hadn't pushed those blockheads away, the strange bull would have broken their swords in an instant. And judging by the force with which Rywan threw it, not only their swords but also their arms would have turned into chopped meat. But Yun, with a couple of blows, noticeably reduced the power and changed the trajectory of the vessel. It seems he has no experience in battle, but he was still able to react in an instant. The Plum Blossom sword control technique is famous for its many techniques based on the truth of softness. In fact, in addition to you also need to learn loyalty and speed. In this regard, the boy was simply born for this technique. He's fast and his movements are straightforward. Now it's clear that their old man didn't send him away because he felt sorry for him. Yun told Ryan that he was fine. He only asked for one thing: if they didn't attack, that he give them a wide berth. And he once again apologized deeply for the actions of the disciples from his clan. Lee Hak asked how he pushed after that, and now he's still apologizing? Nayeon started crying and screaming that he kicked her. Then Chung Hong intervened and said that it seemed they had not yet realized that he had just saved their hands. But if they continued to provoke the demon, he dared to guess that they would find out what might have happened. But suddenly Yun fell to the ground. Heron immediately ran up and asked how he was doing. He immediately realized that it was the scent of plum blossoms. Ruin also came up and asked, "So that's what kind of allergy she has?" Although it perfectly fulfills the role of a flavoring agent, it still does not know simple everyday wisdom. Some, in order to become people, would not hurt a couple of blows. Heron told him that if they couldn't escape the blow, they would at least become disabled. And if they looked, they would say goodbye to life altogether. Of course, he doesn't have warm feelings for them either, but we need to respect Yun's wishes and try to finish school anyway. Chung Hong also said that they should stop at self-defense measures. Now Ho needs to rest. It's time to go back. Does he know that if someone gets hurt, they won't be able to turn back time. Ruin asked if they thought so, but for some reason he felt like he should ask John Lee Hak and Chugayun. And all those insects that are now watching from behind the trees, and as Yun bequeathed, if they attack first, you can beat them. And he asked to treat him and his time with respect. Let them attack at once. He will try not to bring it to a lethal outcome. Heron said that Yun wasn't dead yet. Changhong told him to stop. He had misunderstood them completely. And they stand here and watch in order to prevent the death of their opponents? They are not allowed to fight him. And then the disciple came up and said that those who wanted to get even and measure their strength were waiting in 6 more places. Therefore, he asked him to follow the marks left on the ground. Ruin asked, why should he do that? If they have questions for him, let them come on their own. The guy replied that in order to conduct coordinated fights, appropriate places are required. In return, he can take the gifts left on the ground for himself. And they heard that he likes money? Heron said how humiliating it was. Chung Hong also replied that it was exactly like that. Who would dare to suggest such a thing? And whoever Ruin was, it was naive to think that he would collect these silver bars. Ruin said that there was nothing to be done then, and he left Yun with Uncle and Heron. Ruin went with them and followed. Heron was surprised and said that he actually ran. Hung watched everything and felt that it really worked. How mercenary. Looks strong from the outside, but in reality he's just a fool. Heron and Chang Ho followed him and shouted at Ryuan to take his time. They were coming with him. Chung Hong said that he seemed to be having a lot of fun. He should walk more slowly and look around. Heron told Chung Hong that he could no longer carry Yun alone. At that moment, Ruin stopped and saw the enemy in front of him. The enemy was surprised and said that finally, and asked the guy if he remembered No Dayu In. He is his friend from the Jomchan clan, and his name is O Ding O. The second guy said his name was Mu Yala. The time has truly come. Well, it's time to start fighting. Changong said that if the opponents are disciples of the Jomchan clan, Ruin will have a hard time dealing with them. Heron asked, is that true? This is the first time he's heard of it. Are the Jomchan strong in water battles? Changhong replied that it was true. It wasn't. But their signature sword control technique was flying to the sun. It was based on the incredible speed of the sword strike. In other words, among the 9 clans, they are the strongest in skill. And they also chose to fight on water. This log structure is made with the purpose of drowning Ryuan, possibly the intended end of Ryuan, and although if they sink him, that's still godly. But would one of the opponents really come out of the water and start poking with a sword during the fight? Heron told Ryuan that it was dangerous here. Maybe he'll stop collecting precious ingots and go back? Chung Hong also said that he definitely will. He's not a human being, but he's not a fish yet. Ruin turned around and asked, do they really think so? But for some reason, he doesn't want to refuse. Ruin immediately headed for the fruit, but his landing was hard and he broke the log. Ruin couldn't help but go under the water right away. Chung Hong said that their inhuman creature had started out beautifully, but now maybe he was drowning because of the silver he had filled his pockets with. La said he would go into the water, but O stopped him and said there was something wrong. La said there was a reason for this vibration. Immediately after that, Ruin climbed out of the water with powerful energy. The guys were surprised and managed to jump out. La shouted to O and told him to dodge. Ruin was attacking from behind. But he didn't have time to dodge and the guy fell asleep under the water. Chun Hong was very surprised and couldn't believe it. He said that their inhuman creature had turned into not just a fish, but a real piranha. Heron told Yun to stand up and let him look at Ruin. He's a real piranha now. Ruinu immediately got out of the water and headed for dry land. Heron said that he was leaving. He couldn't get through here with Yun. Chung Hong said that he was right, then let him return to the camp. Chung Hong thought about what to do. He can't decide. And it seems that Ryuan is heading towards the forbidden territory, and his main mission is to monitor the Prince of the Dark Sect. Ruin ran and said that the silver bars lead there, and he will collect them and return. And he tells Chang Hong that at his age it is not recommended to wet his feet in cold water. Let them go too. Chun Hong said that maybe they should leave this money mad. Let him do whatever he wants. And it seems he doesn't need them at all. Chung Hong understood that today was the day the White Crane would return to Chon Muhakwan. So there should be guards for her everywhere. Unless, of course, she scatters silver ingots around herself. They shouldn't cross paths. Their ruins thing, after all, isn't interested in girls. Hung was watching everything at the time and realized that things were going badly. Two students famous for their ability to handle heavy swords and possessing powerful fists. Arriving at the fourth gate of the Gongryun clan, he saw that there were two disciples who had learned the 8 great dragon flight techniques, capable of flying freely in the sky and demonstrating fencing techniques with 2 swords. And at the fifth gate, the Heishan clan even has disciples who possess the sacred monkey walking technique, as well as the leading techniques of controlling the sword of the Falcon King, which involve incredibly specific and combinations of sword movements. His movements are alien to any of the practices known to him. He waves his arms and legs in different directions in an inorganic way. It all looks very cheap, but so powerful and effective. Or maybe he ate too many healing herbs. After that, on the way to the White Crane, only the 6th gate remained, where the disciples from the Shaman clan stand, and the 7th gate, so a couple of followers of Chongsun gathered. And he has to admit, everything has gone wrong. The plan has shown its inconsistency. He believes that in this case, it is not worth continuing this wave of battles. The number of wounded can only increase. At the headquarters, the senior said that Kondong, Gongryun, and Hyun-san had lost. What kind of ruthless methods did he use? Then their last hope is on Chongsun. Who is participating there? Is there even a hint of success? The chief replied that even without the shamans, everything should go according to the prepared strategy. True, there were still quite a few shifts, but there would be no problems in directing him to his destination. And besides, at the last 7th gate, he will stand from the Chensun clan, the head of the White Crane Guards, Viji Cheon's whirlwind sword. He treats the lady like a goddess, so they didn't tell him about their plans. But he's sure that he's the best choice for the final gate. They were trying to punish a crazy person who was making fun of the Hwasan and Jumchan clans. He ran towards him. And today, that bastard joined the young girls' club and said that he would definitely go up to the Yunhyang Pavilion. And he has proof of his greed and perversion of nature. He can check it himself. He has incredible power. Ruin said that there are too many people here. So it turns out that the main treasure is at the top? Ruin said, why bother preparing such gifts? If they insist, he can't refuse. Chun immediately attacked him with his sword and said that he was a pervert. How dare he even think about getting their pearl? Let him die. The sword energy that changes like the wind. Ruin was surprised and asked what was there. He was already in anticipation and how he wanted to get it, and then he would take it with great pleasure. But Chong didn't want to let him do that and shouted that he would finish him off, and immediately used the defensive technique of the 3rd absolute invincible heavenly sword. But Ruin didn't get distracted and simply used protection so that no one would interfere with him, and he took his own. But the princess was at that time in the place where the treasures were located, and after the attack, the place broke and the princess fell. Her necklaces started falling from her body, and she didn't even realize that she would fall from such a height. But at that moment, Ruin happened to be in that very place, and before she could fall, he grabbed her and saved her. Ruin said that it was such a pity that a beauty like her was going to commit suicide. But then she turned out to be completely different, and she pulled out her blade, and she immediately put it to his neck. Rin was in a carriage at the time, on her way to the Alliance. But suddenly a bloodbath began out of nowhere. One of the attackers ordered his men to grab the girl from the carriage first. Rin was very scared and immediately took a knife in her hands to protect herself. She began to listen to what was happening on the street, but she did not go out. Suddenly, she felt someone approaching the door, and she immediately got ready. She suddenly jerked, and immediately the doors opened in front of her. Rin saw that it was her mother. The woman asked her daughter why she needed this knife. The mother told her daughter that she need not worry. Those people would not spill a drop of her blood, but she is worried about something else. Mother said that Rin had been holding the blade this way for a long time, but she would never kill anyone like that. Rin looked at her mother with surprised eyes. Her mother said that, like her father, she would not want her to take up arms, but since she had already chosen this path, maybe she could teach her a few things. Her mother hugged her and showed her that she thought she would still be taught a lot at school, but she wanted to tell her that all sword techniques exist for only one purpose. The mother took the knife from her hand and said that she had to pierce, cut, and cut off the head, and in order to survive, she had to kill the enemy. And if you hold a knife the way she does and swing it the way she really thinks, "Will you be able to kill someone?" But Rin didn't answer and just looked into her mother's eyes. And she asked her if she could at least hurt the enemy. But Mother remembered that Mother had said that this blade had been given to her by a girl from Sichuan. And judging by the fact that she had picked up the weapon, she had indeed changed. But sending her to a martial arts school, she doesn't even know whether to support her or beg her not to go. And as her father used to say, if you live constantly killing, one day a person will be killed himself. And if the time comes when she and her father lose her forever, they will simply go crazy. But she thought, is it worth leaving everything as it is when she does not even know how to hold a knife? Rin told her mother that she understood her perfectly. She was still short, and besides, she needed to hold the knife like this and strike from the bottom up. After all, that was the only way she could pierce the enemy. And then her mother answered her that everything was correct. But suddenly she asked her why she chose the knife as a keepsake. But she can still understand the hairpin. But the knife as a symbol of friendship with that girl from Sikkim? She can no longer understand that. Rin replied that it was because it suited her best. Her mother asked her for what purpose. To remind her of her? She replied that no, not really. And she said that Yunbi was incomparable to anything. The only thing she could take as a keepsake was a hairpin. Because during their meeting, she will be the one to show Yunbi how much she missed her. She will tell her that she never got her out of her head, just as she never took the hairpin out of her hair. So she must remember her. And then the mother replied that she didn't want to hope for that. She realized that her daughter had never behaved like that. It was certainly sweet. And she even wonders what kind of girl this is that her Rin misses her so much. And why, in addition to the hairpin, did she also choose a knife? Rin said that she chose the knife as a sign of her oath. She promised that before their next meeting she would become the strongest. And she will never again allow someone close to her to suffer because of her. And so she will become a sword, the strongest, the hardest, and if necessary, even cold-blooded. And when she meets Yanbi again, she will tell her, showing her this hairpin, that she no longer needs to be protected. Now her body and mind were as strong as a tempered blade. But Ryuan caught her and said that such a beauty wanted to commit suicide. And if anyone touches her without permission, she will kill them mercilessly. And from now on, she will be the one to protect Yunbi. But then Ryuan used his ability and moved her sword aside. Then he jumped out of the way. After landing, Ryuan began to lose his money, and as he began to collect it, he became worried that he would lose it. Ryuan said that even his favorite clothes were ruined. But it was okay. He would consider it the price for their acquaintance. Rin was surprised and asked him if he knew she would strike with a sword. Ryuan replied that of course not. How would he have known? But what he doesn't understand even more is why he's not angry yet. He usually doesn't like losing money. Rin asked, then how did he manage to dodge the blow? Ryuan replied that it was obvious, thanks to his skill. But if she had struck deeper, she might have been able to hurt him. Rin replied that she promised that she would not make such a mistake next time. Ryuan was very surprised and asked why she was doing this to him. What did he do to deserve such hostility at their first meeting? Rin immediately waved her hand and replied that he had irrevocably stolen the most precious thing in her life from her. Ryuan asked in surprise, when? And what exactly? Or maybe it was just a mistake because he didn't understand what she was talking about. At that moment, Rin thought, what's wrong with her? She can't read his thoughts. Facial expressions, movements, voice. None of this means anything to her, as if there was a person in front of him, but a blank sheet of paper. Ryuan said that it seemed to him all the more that he was the victim here, not she, because it was not he who robbed her, but she who stole something from him. Rin asked what she stole from him, and then Ryuan answered that it was the heart. But she did not allow him to talk to her like that and immediately grabbed her blade. Suddenly, a guy came up to them from behind and started yelling at Ryuan and asking how he dared to talk about his dirty thoughts in front of the lady, and how dare he insult her. And now he can't be forgiven. He will punish him. Ryuan turned around and replied that they were so boring, and he said that he actually thought he had already sent everyone flying. The warrior told him to shut up. He had caught them off guard, but it wouldn't work anymore. And now he will repay with death for such an insult to their mistress. Rin replied that he did not remember insulting her. He thinks it's much worse to follow her around and, under the pretext of providing protection, stare at her body. The warrior immediately shouted at him to shut up. After all, they thank the Almighty that they have been given the honor of protecting the lady. He had the nerve to touch her without permission, making him furious. He wondered where this man came from, a bad person with wrong intentions. And how dare he touch her back and legs, and even hug the white crane? Only he is worthy of her hugs. And then Rin said that he understood everything, and if the warrior was jealous, then let him say so. And couldn't he let her crash to her death? The warrior was just angry that he caught her, and not the warrior. The warrior couldn't hold back, and showing his strength, shouted at him to shut up. After all, he was about to cut off his dirty tongue and vile little hands. The warrior immediately used the sword energy that changed like the wind, and the third technique was the 8-sword strike. Ruin looked at this and smiled as he simply waved his hand, easily repelling this useless attack. Ruin made fun of him a little and said that he didn't touch the bones and nerves, so he didn't have to worry about it. Once it healed, he would be able to hold a sword. Immediately after that, the other soldiers ran up and asked what he had done to Weiji Cheon, and they asked the commander if he was okay. The warriors started saying that this guy was a ruthless creature, and does he really think that after this, they will let him go? He will pay for insulting the lady and for daring to wound their commander. Ruan sighed and replied that they were asking for trouble. But today it won't work anyway. It's time for him to go. He immediately went about his business and at parting told Rin that they would see each other again. The warriors left him and shouted after him that he was a coward and a bastard. But then they saw that the white crane had gone after him. The elder came to his senses and said that this is where they had all been hiding. He asked them what they had done here. At the academy, Cheng Hong came into the room and said that he had returned, and asked had Yun not come to his senses yet. Heron said no, and he told Cheng Hong that he said he would step away for a minute, but they had to wait for him for a long time. Did he take a roundabout way? Cheng Hong asked in response. What other roundabout way? He went to a very important place, and in order to ensure peace in the school, he made an anonymous statement. Heron asked, really, the teachers? Then Ryuan might get expelled too. Cheng Hong asked him, really, he wasn't worried at all about the poor guys who would run into their Ryuan. Besides, he was sure that with his abilities, he would be able to escape. Heron told him that he was absolutely right and he would pray for their souls. Cheng Hong said that it was all true, and he knew that Ryuan was heading to a very dangerous place, so he couldn't ignore it. And he hopes that the teachers got there before he did something irreparable. It's a bit annoying to deal with him myself. Rin climbed to the very top of the cliff and followed that guy. But at the bottom, the elder asked, what happened to Chon? And how dare they commit a massacre with real swords on the territory of a sacred school? Tribunal everyone. But the warriors told him no. They did nothing of the sort. At this time, Rin was not afraid of anything, and followed him into the dense and scary forest. But Ryun at this time came to his senses and said that he forgot to ask her name. He even thought that all unusual people fall from the sky. Just like then, although the character of the fallen girl is completely different, although the situation itself is similar, he became very curious about who she was. After all, her heart was still beating, and it couldn't even stop. The elder asked if he had sent the members of Guchonghua. Hung replied that this scandal would be discussed for a long time. The elder got angry and said that he heard that the white crane could only rip his clothes. And what was this Weijin Cheon doing at that moment? Han replied that they said he was the genius of the Cheonsong clan and the successor of Chung Jung-myung, and it seemed like the guy had completely forgotten about his training after falling in love with a crane. Once his arm is healed, the teachers will immediately start questioning him. What does he think he will tell them? Now we need to decide what to do next. The elder replied that he was thinking and thinking. This stupid Ji Chun, but perhaps there was no need to worry about him. The elder asked him why he was silent. Khan thought that if this was the guy he knew, he will not be able to bear such shame and will definitely not tell anyone anything, wanting to personally take revenge on the offender. The elder asked the boy if he had hurt his hand in a fight. Chan replied that he had hurt himself while practicing. The elder got angry and asked him what he thought, that he would believe it. The others answered that it looked like he would stand his ground to the last. If he was lying, at least let him do it convincingly. The warriors knelt down and said he wasn't fighting. He fell while practicing with them, and all because of a sudden gust of wind. The elder asked, so he was knocked down by a gust of wind, right? They are all trying to prove to him that the genius of Chong Song and son of Boom Young-ju got such an injury just by falling. The elder told the boy that these wounds were definitely from a sword. If they were even a little deeper, he would never be able to hold a sword in his hand again. And who did he ask the guy who he was protecting? Was he more important than him? His man who was supposed to inherit the sword of Chong Song and protect the white sect? Chun thought at that moment, what was all the fuss about a pathetic hand? It would be better if he made it so that he could never hold a sword again. Even he had to kill him. But in reality, she was staring at that guy. And in that humiliating moment, she turned her gaze in his direction, only to never look at him again. Chun was very upset after this and wished that the guy would kill him. After all, he would now have to live with his shame. Chun couldn't hold back his emotions and said that he wasn't protecting anyone, and he promised himself that he would definitely tear him to shreds someday. At night, Ruin got to his room and went to sleep. But suddenly, Hui felt the guy get up from the bed and turn his head right at him. Ruin stood up and opened the window to see the light. Hui thought it was strange and saw the boy freeze in place. After that, Ruin started sewing his clothes. But Hui was trying to sleep, and with every noise, he opened his eyes and looked. Every time he turned around, he saw Ruin changing his actions every 5 minutes and preventing him from falling asleep. Ruin suddenly asked Hui if he was already awake. He told the guy that he was from here, and it turns out he knew a lot about this school. But he was interested in something. Hui told him to ask. He had never neglected his studies before, so he would answer him if he knew. And then Ryuan decided to ask who is the most beautiful girl in the school. Hui was surprised and couldn't even answer him. In the morning, Ryun went to his friends and asked the same question again. Chung Hong was surprised and asked in response, "What kind of idiotic questions are you asking so early in the morning?" Heron asked him if he had met a beauty yesterday after parting with them, but Yun asked Ryun if he had arrived safely yesterday. Ryun replied that he was asking seriously. And why was Yun speaking formally again? At this point, Yun became upset and said that he apologized for yesterday. The boys did badly, and Ryun believed in him and hoped for help, but he, on the contrary, tried to interfere. Heron hugged him and said it was okay. He didn't think there was anything to apologize for. No matter how bastards they were, if he let them die, it would only make things worse. Yun said that besides, because he fainted, he had caused them a lot of trouble. If there was anything they needed, he would do it in a moment. Just let him say so. Ryun smiled and asked him if he would definitely do it, and he thought about what to ask him for. Chung Hong couldn't stand it and got angry and told him that if he still had a piece of conscience left, let him have mercy. Let him make concessions. And what else was he going to entrust him with? Heron also shut the guy's mouth and told Ryun that Yun wanted to take back his words, and showed that the guy even nodded his head and agreed. Ryun said that he wasn't going to assign anything special anyway. So why are they making a fuss right away? Maybe they'll answer his question now? Hyeryong replied that he didn't know about Jin Ho, but he thought they should know. He asked, "Don't people have different standards of beauty?" Chung Hong asked him too, why he thought he was good at it. In his free time, he should study something useful or practice. Chung Hong immediately realized that this kid was a real thorn. He knew who he was looking for, but he couldn't say it directly. And thanks to the informant, he learned what happened then. But he still can't understand what those guys are up to. In such a short time, he brought one and the children of Jong to such a terrible state, and he was also holding immunity itself, a white crane, in his hands. His head was ready to explode from the pile of thoughts about how many reports he would have to write on these guys. Ruin was upset and said that no one could give him an answer. He thought so, he should find an expert. Ruin went to see the expert, and Mr. Tay told him that he was the right guy when it came to beautiful girls. There was no one like him. Ruin told him that he was probably serious. If he agreed to the terms previously proposed, he could use his membership in the club as proof of the deal. Tay replied that, like the guy, he hopes that the club will continue to develop without any unnecessary problems. At this time, Yun asked his neighbor if it was strange here. Heron replied that this place was originally like this, but Ryan said that everything would change. He joined purely out of curiosity, but Yun could go to any other club. Yun said no. Since he couldn't pay back yesterday any other way, he would at least do this. And thanks to Chung Hong, who signed up for the club without question, he's sure everything will be fine. Chung Hong heard everything and knew it wasn't so. He only agreed because he had to keep an eye on these two. Ruin said at this time that, however, before they could begin planning for the future, he felt they would have to face some problems. Chung Hong heard and said that something very ominous was coming. Heron asked if there was really a case that would make your palms sweat. Yun also chimed in and asked if something had happened. Suddenly, sabotage began in the room, and the eldest asked the two brothers what they were doing here today. Ruin looked and said that he probably knew her. And what kind of resentment is this, if such an evil aura is felt? O asked his friend what was going on. Was someone pestering Doc and Bon, or the White Crane again? Law replied that frankly there were so many options that it was hard to suggest. In any case, before their only club building is completely smashed to smithereens, they should surrender voluntarily. Suddenly the door opened unexpectedly, and a girl with one eye came in. She started screaming that they were fucking perverted. She asked right away, which of them dared to touch the White Crane? If they confessed right now, she would kill only him. The girl remembered her memories of how Rin approached her and addressed her. But she asked her, "Are we talking about yesterday?" Rin told her that she did. The girl told her that they were already acquainted. She didn't need to bow her head to her. They will be seeing each other often now. Does she plan to continue to act distant? The girl suggested to Rin that they be friends, and if someone torments her, she should definitely tell her about it. She was pretty strong after all, and she knew that Rin was her first sister, and so she would protect her no matter what it took. After this, the girl woke up early in the morning, and putting on her eye patch, she set out on her journey. At this time, Rin was in the forest, holding a sword in her hands. She was accumulating energy to release it. But at that moment, the race fell from the leaves. She immediately picked the right moment, and waving her sword, decided to pick up the race. But she changed her mind at the last moment and cut the race into two parts with her sword. By this time, the girl came and told her sister that it was a smooth and graceful movement. But why was she holding a sword in her hands early in the morning? Rin greeted her sister and replied that she simply had something to think about. The girl asked, what was it about? Rin thought and answered that about one man. The girl hearing this was very surprised and asked, about a man? The girl asked, was it by any chance about Weichon? Rin answered that number. The girl did not understand and asked, then who was she talking about? Rin replied that she had only met him once, so she didn't know his name. The girl asked in surprise, she didn't know? And asked, should she kill him? Rin replied that she would look and said that she didn't know why, but she couldn't read it. The girl asked, was he able to avoid her gaze? If he was not stronger than her, then this could not have happened. Rin said no, he was different. It was like she was looking at a blank piece of paper, and besides, she needed to know more about his martial arts skills. The girl answered with surprise, what a blank sheet, he apparently just has no brains. But then a little girl came and said, how did they both end up here? The girl told her sisters that she finally succeeded. She was talking about 12 strikes with twin swords. The girl was surprised and asked if she really managed to master this technique. She worked so hard to master it and finally did it. She congratulates her. Rin also did not stand aside and congratulated. The girl was surprised and began to say that Rin's sister was congratulating her. And could this mean the same thing? The girl told the younger one that she didn't mean it that way. Her praise didn't it count. The girl said no. No one can appreciate her skills like Sister Rin. After all, no matter what technique she uses, Sister manages to avoid the blow every time. And that's why she can't even compete with her sister Rin, the master of the sword that sees into the soul. The girl said that today was a little different. Since she had mastered the 12 strikes of the dual swords, it would be good if she tried them with Rin. She had also recently honed her skills, so why not practice when the opportunity presented itself? And what did her sister think about it? Rin replied that she understood and agreed. And then the girl said that she had some other things to do. She would leave first. Let them be careful with the swords, they are not wooden. The girl was very happy and said that she agreed, and finally this day had come. The girl, leaving, understood that she needed to find out what had happened to the White Crane. If she asked those bastard guards, then maybe she would find something. After 30 minutes, Rin and the girl started fighting, but the little girl got upset and said that she lost. But the girl came to the guards and beat them all to the last one. Before leaving, they asked her forgiveness for not being able to protect the White Crane. After that, she came to the club and entered the room with both feet saying that there are pure perverts here.